In this video, you're gonna learn everything you need to know about digital products and how people are making millions of dollars selling them online. By the time you finish this video, you'll have a complete understanding of how the digital product model works, how to create one, how to sell it, and how to scale it into a life-changing business. My name is Terrence Chister, and to date, I've generated over $141 million in digital product sales. Everything I'm about to teach you comes directly from real experience, not theory, but from someone who has done this at the highest level possible. Over the years, I've won just about every award you can win in this industry, and in this video, I'm gonna break down the exact knowledge, strategies, and systems that allow me to do it so you can start doing the same. Make sure you watch this entire video from start to finish, because if you skip around, you'll miss key pieces that are essential for maximizing your results and revenue. So if you're ready to learn how this actually works, let's get into it. If you wanna understand how someone like myself is making $53,000 per day selling digital products, then stay till the end of this video, because I'm going to show you exactly how, along with multiple paths you can take to do so. It is about choosing the right path of digital product and building it in a way that can actually scale, because some digital products naturally grow into massive businesses while others almost never reach serious revenue no matter how much time people spend on them. I'm going to be breaking down the types of digital products that allow someone to realistically scale to numbers like $53,000 per day, why they work, and how people can structure them so they can grow into very large online businesses. Now, before we get into this, let me give you a little bit of background on myself so you understand that I have the field of experience to be speaking on this subject matter. My name is Terrence Chister, and I've generated over $141 million in sales. I've worked with over 50,000 plus business owners, all while being able to travel the world and do cool things like pay off my parents' mortgage and build schools in Africa. So now that you understand my background, if you watch this all the way through, you will understand the different digital product models that make numbers like $53,000 per day possible and how to think about building one that actually has that kind of upside. So first up, we have online courses. So when most people think about digital products, they think, hey, I'm gonna buy something, I'm gonna take a course, and that's basically it. That honestly is the laziest way that you can make money. There's actually a lot better ways in my personal opinion, but I actually don't think of this usually when I'm talking about digital products. Now, when you're talking about an online course, usually you're talking around, $47 to $97. Maybe sometimes it'll be as high as $2,000. That's probably usually the limit, but it's gonna be somewhere in that range, right? So we'll just go back and we'll say 47 to 2,000, something like that. The first thing I ever built was called the Rapid Muscle System. So we'll just call it RMS, and I sold it for $47. Now, the benefit is I was able to learn a lot of the operational sides of things. I was able to learn how to build funnels, emails, SMS, how to set up automations. I mean, I literally had no idea how business worked. And so this was a full education that most people just never actually learn these things. The downside was that because it was $47, there's only two ways to really sell. You can sell things virally or with ads. Well, the issue with ads is that it would usually cost $100 to make one $47 sale, so that doesn't work. So I'd have to go viral, but as we all know, going viral is very hard, right? Most of us cannot do it. So this usually only works really well if you have a big following, or you don't care if you make a lot of money, but you're just lazy, right? And you're like, hey, if I make a little money here and there, it's fine. But when I sold this, I only made $2,000 over 2 years. And the reason was that I would post on social media, I wouldn't DM anybody, I wouldn't get on any calls, I couldn't afford ads. And so I just really spun my circle. So you can definitely make a lot of money doing this, but the person that usually does well with this type of offer is gonna be like a Kim Kardashian, Justin Bieber, someone famous who gets a lot of eyeballs. And so it makes more sense for them to not build out this massive team, but just convert a fraction of those eyeballs into customers. Paid membership communities. Now, I do like the fact that it's recurring income, but the problem usually is that when it's information based, people usually fall off after about 3 months. For example, you're selling something for, $47. The problem is that after 3 months, those people are going to go ahead and fall off. And so you might make $150 and then you're constantly putting out content, but after a while, it's kind of the same thing, right? And so if you're gonna actually run a successful membership course, usually you wanna build it in a way where it's going to continue to deliver value. So for example, that's why a lot of times this isn't actually along the same wavelength, but it's similar, is tech, right? It's recurring, it's not a membership site, but people still have to pay for the tech to get it to work. Or someone might pay for subscription for clothes, right? It's like, hey, every single month we're gonna bring you new clothes or shoes, or I don't know, there's all kinds of stuff out there. There's shaving. Those are the types of things where people are like, hey, at least I'm getting new value. But when it's around info products or information, I don't see this work as well. Now, again, it goes back to the same thing. If you're gonna do some type of membership site, it's usually gonna be low ticket. And that means you're gonna have to go viral or you're gonna have to run ads. Again, this is gonna be more for someone who can go viral, who has a big following. What you're gonna notice is that more times than not, people fail in business because they're constantly going after these viral tactics. Well, if it was that easy to go viral, more people would do it. So instead, you need to build around ads. And we're going to get into a couple other options you can do if you go with ads. But the benefit is when you run ads, if you sell something, let's say for $3,000, I'll show you this in a second, and you spend $1,000 on ads, you make $2,000 of profit. Okay. And those margins allow you to scale and actually make money. But if you're just going to constantly try to go viral and sell things for cheap, that's tough, right? And that's why most of the time this won't work. Business tech and systems. So most people don't know how to do this. This is going to be funnels, automations, emails, SMS, etc. So it's not that these are super difficult, at least for me, but it's that they do take a lot of time and consumption, and you have to learn the ropes. So you can go to someone easily and you could do what's called a micro COO offer. Okay, or anything lesser. And you can say, hey, I will set up all your funnels, your automations, your emails, your SMS. Make sure all the systems are working properly so that you can run your business and let it function. And you can charge usually for this, like anywhere between 3 to 5K a month, and maybe do about 2 hours of work a day. So I'm not saying you have to be a micro COO. You could also just be an operational manager, or you could be a tech support person, whatever. But the point is that there's a lot of business owners who need to run the operational side of a business, but they don't really understand how. They're just more of an idea person, right? They have this great idea, they want to execute on it, but they actually have no idea. Now, the benefit of this type of offer is, again, the only way to make money is go viral or ads. I'm going to keep saying the same thing over and over because that is the only way. It's either you get it for free, and usually you have to get a lot of eyeballs going viral, or you spend money. The benefit here is because you could sell this for 3 to 5 grand, is you could spend $1,000 on ads. You could get 100 leads. You could have 10 calls. You close one person. And let's say you close that person at 3K. Well, you get a pocket 2 grand, boom, bada bing. You are now in a good place. So this is actually one of my favorite things to have people sell. It's not an ad agency per se. You're not running ads or doing media, but you're doing all the back end. And the thing is, back end stuff is very valuable because they always need it. It's always changing. If they do a new funnel or have a new website page, or they have to do new emails or SMS messages, new follow-up systems, you're going to need this type of system. So if you can start or learn business tech and systems, you can make a lot of money. And to be quite frank, if I wasn't a business owner and I had to start over again, this is probably what I would go into, because you can easily make about $20,000 a month, work 6 to 8 hours a day, and the retention of these clients is ongoing for a long time because they always need the tech stack and systems that you're going to implement. One of my favorites, which is coaching. And one of the reasons I love coaching is that there's zero cost in terms of fulfillment, but you can really jack up the price points. Now, why are you able to do that? It comes down to one word. You get more access. Okay. So someone goes, hey, Tanner, how much is it to work with your team? And I say a random number. Let's say I say 10,000 for 4 months, and we're doing a lot of intensive work. How much is it to work with you? I could say 100,000 for 4 months. Well, why would it cost more to work with me if it's the exact same thing? It's because of the access, right? So when you can access someone who's higher level than you, or makes more money than you, or you deem as more valuable, you can push the price point. So for example, if I sell a $47 program, like I did back in the day, the Rapid Muscle System, all I did to start coaching in fitness is I raised that price point to $1,500, and I gave them one-to-one support. That's all I did. I was able to go from $47 to $1,500 because they got one-to-one support with me. And what that allowed me to do is, instead of spinning my wheels in circles trying to go viral, which I did for a long time, what I did instead is I then started running ads, and I could spend $1,000. I usually would get 100 leads. I'd get 10 calls. And because I was really good at sales at the time, I closed like 4 deals. And at the time I was selling $3,200 packages. So 3,200 times 4, if I can do the math really quickly, I can't. So let me just go ahead and gear this up. 8, 12. Okay. So 12,800. I used to be a mathematician, believe it or not. That was a lot of cash that I can make very quickly just by pushing this price point up. And it's really just comes down to access, because people deem that more valuable. One-on-one is more valuable than group, so on and so forth. Software or micro SaaS tools. The great thing about software is if it works, it will crush and you can make a ton of money. The hard thing is it's really hard to get into it. It takes a lot of capital, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy. To give you guys context, I've been working on a piece of software for the last 2 years. It could literally just be a complete net negative. Like, I can make no money from it. As I've been growing in business and I'm going from coaching, consulting to higher level things, I'm like, hey, what are the type of softwares that my clients use? And then just building that for them. Now, it takes a lot of time, money, effort, etc. But again, these can really crush. So a piece of software I'm working on right now, hopefully by the time this video comes out, it's going to be launched. It's in beta phase right now, but it's $1,500 a month. If a business must use this to be successful in business, if I get at $1,500 a month, that's $18,000 a year. And the benefit with selling this is you usually can give free trials. Okay. So you can get people in really easy. The hard part is the upfront capital and the level of experience and time and stuff like that. It takes a lot of stuff. Now, micro SaaS tools are usually going to be cheaper, like $97. So for example, there was actually a company out there called Group Track. And I used them at one point. I don't use them anymore. Nothing wrong with them, et cetera. But what they did is when people came into your Facebook groups, you could let them in and then they would scrape their names and emails and phone numbers based on the questions you asked. And then that would go straight into my email system. They were the only ones who could do it at the time. I think it's a little different now, but they were the only ones who could do it at the time. So they could go out and sell this for $97 a month and people would just pay for it over and over and over again because they needed it to be able to scrape that information of people who came into their Facebook group. So this is actually one of my favorite ones. I actually think this is better than all of them, but it's the hardest one to get into. So, apples for apples, oranges to oranges, like this is not where I would start. But if you have experience in one of these areas or you're willing to take a heavier risk, this is something that I really like. Actionable playbooks and guides. So we'll just call these guides or PDFs. So again, this kind of goes back to selling a course or so. This is usually a one-off thing. So it's not curriculum and a bunch of videos. It's a one-off thing. But again, the issue with this is usually you have to go viral and you can't afford ads. So this could be like a protein recipe book, or this could be how to run Facebook ads. So it's just one specific thing usually. The benefit is it's easy. It's not a lot of fulfillment. You could sell it really cheaply, but again, you usually have to go viral. If you don't have higher price things on the back end, this doesn't work. So again, number 6 isn't bad. It's a great way to start. You can get your feet wet. You can learn how to kind of build stuff, kind of learn how to market, but ultimately, it's really only built for people who have really big followings. This isn't going to be my go-to for business owners who want to make a lot of money. Like for most people, you don't have a following, so we have to run ads, and this just does not support that model. So all 6 of those can work, but for the majority of you who don't have big followings, I would stick with either number 3, which was the systems, right? Where you go into someone's business and you actually build out the systems and you're a little bit of a micro COO, or you do the coaching or consulting where you can push the price point simply just teaching people what you know. And the reason is, again, for these 2, you can run ads. And at the end of the day, if you don't get to ads, I just think most people aren't successful. They start these businesses, they really struggle, they have a very hard time, and they can't stick with it because they don't see any traction after years and years. So to give you guys context, in the first 2 years of business, I made $2,000. In the last 8, I've done $141 million. Big difference. I'm not saying you're gonna do $141 million, but I am trying to say that the model matters a lot. Warren Buffett himself says it's not about how hard you wrote, it's about what vehicle you're in. It's the same thing here. So when you look at digital businesses generating numbers like $53,000 per day, the pattern is almost always the same. They're not chasing dozens of different ideas. They usually focus on solving one valuable problem, packaging that solution into a scalable digital product, and then improving it over time as the audience grows. Digital products rarely become large businesses because they're complicated. They become large because they solve a real problem clearly and consistently reach the right people. So if you're thinking about building a digital product business, the most important step is not trying every single model at once. It's choosing the one that fits your experience, your strengths, and the type of problem you understand best, and then committing to building it properly. If you guys found this helpful, make sure to subscribe and follow along for more insights on building scalable online businesses and digital products, or reach out to me personally using the links in the description or pinned comment below, and I can help you drive real results fast. Most people right now think they're ahead because they're using AI, but if you actually pay attention to how they're using it, nothing about their situation has really changed. They open it up, they'll type in a question, and then they'll get an answer. Maybe they use it to write something up or help them think, and then they go right back to doing everything manually. It feels like progress because it's faster than before, but at the end of the day, they're still the one doing the work. They're still the ones responsible for every step, and they're still training their time for results. At the same time, there's another group of people who are using the exact same tools in a completely different way, and their outcomes look nothing like that. These people are not sitting there doing tasks all day, they're not writing every message, they're not manually finding customers, and they're not spending hours putting together deliverables. Instead, they figured out how to set things up once and let AI handle the rest. Their involvement is minimal, but their output is higher. That's what makes this moment so different. For the first time, the advantage doesn't go to the person who works the hardest, it goes to the person who refuses to do work that doesn't need to be done by them. Lazy in this context is not a weakness, it's a strategy. It's the ability to look at something and immediately recognize that you shouldn't be the one doing it. The gap between these 2 types of people is growing fast, and most people don't even realize it's happening because on the surface, it looks like everyone is doing the same thing. They're all using AI, but the results couldn't be more different. So in this video, I'm going to show you the laziest ways to make money with AI in 2026,
But most importantly, I'm going to walk through it in a way where you can actually follow along and do it yourself. I'm going to show you exactly how to think, exactly what to type, and how to turn something simple into a system that runs without you constantly being involved. The goal here is not just to give you information, it's to change the way you operate completely. So make sure to stick to the end, because by the end of this video, you will have all the tools you need to get rich in 2026. My name is Terrence Chister. I've generated over $141 million in sales. I've worked with over 50,000 plus business owners. I own a plethora of companies, and I'm able to do what I want, whenever I want, with who I want. Before we get into anything practical, you need to understand the one shift that makes this entire thing work. Because without this, you'll end up doing more work with AI instead of less. Most people are still operating like workers. Even though they have access to tools, they could remove them from their work entirely. They go into AI, they ask something, they get an answer, and then they leave. They take that answer somewhere else, they adjust it, they send it, they come back, and they repeat that cycle over and over again. They're constantly in the middle of every step, and because of that, nothing actually scales. AI becomes a helper instead of a replacement. The real shift happens when you stop thinking about individual tasks and you start thinking about entire processes. Instead of asking what you need to do next, you start looking at the whole flow and asking why you're involved in it at all. Every time you find yourself doing something that feels repetitive or structured, something that could be explained step by step, that's usually a sign that it could be handed off. It's about training yourself to ask not what needs to be done, but who or what can do it for me. And in this case, the what is AI. The easiest way to internalize this is to imagine that AI is a team that works for you. Not a tool you occasionally use, but a group of people that are capable of handling different parts of your business. If you had that in real life, you wouldn't sit there doing everything yourself while they waited for instructions. You would assign tasks, you would give context, and then you would check the result. That's exactly what you need to do here. The AI can handle the repetitive, structured, and research-heavy parts of your business while you focus on thinking ahead, making decisions, and connecting the dots that only a human can connect. The only difference is that AI moves faster. It doesn't get tired, and it can handle multiple things at once. The bottleneck is not the tool, it's how you're using it. If you treat it like a search engine, you get small improvements. If you treat it like a team, you start replacing entire workflows. Once that clicks, everything else becomes a lot easier, because now you're not trying to figure out how to work harder or faster, you're trying to figure out how to remove yourself from the process as much as possible. And when you think in that way consistently, you start to see every task not as something to endure, but as a system to automate, which completely changes the game. One of my clients came to me with about 20,000 subscribers on YouTube, and within a year, we scaled her to over 400,000 subscribers and over 200 million views. And she didn't do anything crazy. We just installed the right system, content strategy, posting consistency, SEO, thumbnails, and we handled everything behind the scenes, A to Z. So all she had to focus on was filming. That's what most people get wrong about YouTube. It's not talent, it's honestly infrastructure. So we built a done-for-you YouTube service where we handle everything for you. If you wanna grow just like that, just click below and we'll do it for you. Now let's make this real. Imagine you wanna start making money online with something simple like helping businesses grow their social media or improve their marketing. The first instinct most people have is to go find customers manually. They open Instagram, scroll through profiles, click around websites, and slowly try to figure out who might need help. This process is slow, inconsistent, and honestly one of the biggest reasons people never get momentum. It eats time and energy without building leverage. We're not doing that at all here. Instead, you open up AI and give it a very specific instruction that replaces that entire process. So you describe exactly who you're looking for, what niche they're in, how active they should be, and what kind of signals would indicate they're a good fit. For example, you ask it to find businesses in the fitness and wellness space that are actively posting on platforms like Instagram or TikTok. Make sure they've posted recently so you know they're not dead accounts, and then return useful details like their name, website, social handles, and a short explanation of what they do. But this is where you take it a step further and start thinking like an operator instead of a worker. Instead of just asking for information, you're going to ask for insight. You have AI look at their content and point out weaknesses or missed opportunities or areas where they can improve. Now you're not just getting a list, you're actually getting context. You're getting a framework that allows you to prioritize who to reach out to first, which accounts are likely to respond, and which strategies will resonate most. That level of analysis would normally take hours, but AI does it instantly. And not only is it faster, it's often better because it's structured and repeatable. You're no longer relying on your own energy or focus to build a list. Once you do this a few times, something starts to shift. You stop thinking about finding leads as something you have to do, and you start seeing it as something that can be generated whenever you need it. That's the first layer of leverage, and it completely changes how you approach making money. Suddenly, lead generation stops being a bottleneck and starts being a system that works for you. Now that you have a list of leads, this is where most people either hesitate or they'll completely mess it up. Outreach has always been one of the biggest bottlenecks because it forces people to put themselves out there. And most people either overthink it or avoid it entirely. When they do send messages, they're usually generic, they're rushed, and they're easy to ignore, which is why so many leads never turn into customers. Instead of doing that, you could go back into AI and let it handle the outreach for you. But you do it in a way that actually makes sense. You give it context about who you're reaching out to and what you're offering, and you tell it to write messages that feel natural and personalized based on that information. You can feed in previous posts, campaigns, or public updates, and the AI will connect all the dots to create something that actually resonates. It's no longer generic, it's thoughtful, it's timely, and it feels like a real human put the effort into it. What's happening behind the scenes is that AI is connecting the dots between the data it already has and the message it's creating. It's referencing specific things about each business, their content, their positioning, and using that to make the message feel relevant. That's something that would normally take a lot of effort if you were doing it yourself, but here it happens almost instantly. You can even have AI monitor responses and draft replies that feel natural, keeping the conversation going without you typing a single word more than necessary. Over time, this becomes consistent, and consistency is what actually leads to results. The people who win are not the ones who send the perfect message, they're the ones who show up consistently. And because AI handles all the repetitive decision-making, your mental energy is free to focus on high-level strategy, refining your messaging, and deciding which leads are worth prioritizing.
If your YouTube channel isn't growing, it's not because the algorithm hates you, it's because you don't even know what you're doing. I took one creator from 30,000 subscribers to 1.2 million subscribers and 1.3 billion views. That's not luck, that's an actual system. Now the cool part is we handled everything. So the editing, the thumbnails, the strategy, the posting, all he had to do was show up and hit the record button. And that's why you're stuck, because you're trying to do everything yourself. If you want a real team behind your channel, just click below.
Outreach stops being a task and starts being a system that runs smoothly without you needing to micromanage. Now, let's say someone replies and they're interested. This is the point where most people slow down because now there's an expectation to deliver something real. They go back to doing everything manually, they start overthinking, and they end up spending hours trying to put something together. This is where most people lose the leverage they had. Instead of doing that, you go back into AI and you give it everything it needs to understand the situation. You provide context about the client or their business and what they're trying to achieve, and then you can actually ask it to analyze everything. You're essentially outsourcing the thinking process, and it can look at their content, their messaging, their positioning, and identify patterns that would normally take you a long time to notice. It can point out what's working or what's not and where the biggest opportunities are. From there, you can have it turn those insights into a structured plan that you can actually present. Then you can take it one step further and have it format everything into something that looks clean and professional. A report or a breakdown, something that feels like a deliverable. And at this point, you're not building from scratch anymore. You're stepping in at the end, reviewing what's been created, making small adjustments, and sending it. The heavy lifting has already been done, and you're still delivering value without the exhausting manual work. This is where the laziest part really comes into play, because you're still creating real outcomes, but the amount of effort required from you is dramatically lower. You're no longer limited by how much work you can personally handle, which opens the door to scaling. Every time you let AI handle a chunk of the work, you multiply your leverage and create space to handle more clients, more projects, or simply more freedom in your life. Once you've gone through this process a few times, you start to see the pattern. The same steps show up again and again, and that's where the real opportunity is. Anything that repeats itself can be turned into a system. You stop thinking about each individual task and you start thinking about the whole chain of events, from finding leads to outreach to delivering results, and then how each step can trigger the next one automatically. Lead generation becomes something that runs regularly. Outreach becomes something that can be generated quickly whenever you need it, and delivery becomes something that follows a structure you can reuse and improve over time. As you build these connections, your business starts to feel less like work and more like something that runs in the background. You're not starting from zero every single time, you're building on top of something that already exists. So the system itself becomes your main asset, not just the client work you're doing. This is how you scale without working more. You're not adding more effort, you're improving your systems. And the more you lean into that, the more everything starts to compound. Each automated step compounds the leverage you already have, and over time, the process begins to generate value even when you're not actively thinking about it. That's the real magic of using AI this way. Once you understand the systems and the workflow, the next step is knowing which AI actually does the heavy lifting for each part. Not all AI tools are created equal, and part of the advantage of being lazy in a smart way is picking the right tool for the right problem.
You're probably posting on YouTube and making little to no money. One of my clients was making $350 a month, and 3 months later, over $10,000 per month. Same person, same content, different system. We rebuilt everything behind the scenes, and it completely changed the outcome. So if you're tired of posting and getting nothing, stop guessing. Click below and we'll build it out for you.
For research and gathering information, tools like ChatGPT and Claude AI excel. They can pull insights from large amounts of text, summarize content, and even analyze patterns across multiple sources. You can feed them a website or a social profile or public data set, and they will extract everything you need to know, saving you hours of manual digging. These tools are perfect for building context about potential leads, industries, or competitors. And when it comes to actually generating lead lists, AI platforms like Apollo or Manus AI or Phantom Buster specialize in sourcing contact information, scanning social media activity, and identifying businesses that match specific criteria. These tools allow you to describe exactly who you're looking for, and then they go out and collect names, emails, social handles, and other relevant details, structuring it all in a way that's ready for outreach. You don't have to scrape websites or scroll endlessly through profiles. The AI handles it, and it often does a more thorough job than a human ever could. For writing emails, messages, or any kind of outreach that needs to feel personal, ChatGPT, Jasper AI, and Copy.ai are excellent. They can take the research data, the context about a potential client, and they can turn it into a natural, human-felt message. These tools understand tone, audience, and context, so you're not just sending generic copy, you can even feed it in previous responses, social posts, or industry details, and they will craft follow-ups that will feel relevant and personal. This is where outreach stops being a headache and starts being a repeatable system that scales. Then there's the work of delivering value, creating reports, analyzing client content, or producing structured plans. Tools like Notion AI and ChatGPT with advanced plugins can turn raw data into polished deliverables, summarize insights, visualize trends, and even draft actionable plans. They can save you hours taking scattered information and turning it into something professional, structured, and ready to share. You simply have to review it, tweak if needed, and present. The bulk of the work is already done. Now, finally, for automation connecting all the pieces together, use tools like Zapier, Make, and Manus AI Shine. They allow you to create workflows where one's AI output triggers another AI to take the next step, and that automatically will send emails or update spreadsheets or generate reports without you having to intervene. When everything is connected, your business starts running as a complete system with each part working together seamlessly. At this point, it might feel like AI is doing most of the work, and that leads to a bigger question about what your role actually is. The answer is that your role becomes more important, not less, but it shifts into something different. What starts to matter more is your ability to recognize what's actually good and your ability to think ahead, and your ability to understand people. AI can generate endless outputs, but it doesn't truly understand quality. It can analyze patterns, but it's not the one deciding what direction to go in. And most importantly, business is still human. People make decisions based on trust, emotion, and connection. That's something AI can support, but not replace. So while AI handles execution, you can focus on direction. You can decide what gets built, how it should feel, and who it's for. That's what separates people who use AI from people who actually benefit from it. You become the visionary or the curator of taste, so to speak, and the person who decides which ideas are worth scaling. At this point, you've seen how this works in a way that's actually practical. This isn't something that requires months of setup or a complicated system. It starts with small shifts in how you approach the work you're already doing. The real difference comes from what you choose to stop doing. Every time you remove yourself from something that can be automated, you're creating leverage. Over time, that builds into something when your income is no longer tied directly to your time. So the real question isn't whether this works. The real question is what you're still doing right now that you don't actually need to be doing anymore. Because once you start removing those things and replacing them with systems, everything changes. You're not just using AI, you're orchestrating it. You're stepping into the director's seat, and for the first time, you're getting paid for your decisions and your systems instead of just your hours. And that's the way to scale in 2026 and beyond.
If you want to make money online right now, one of the biggest advantages you can build isn't working harder or trying more things. It's learning how to actually use AI in a way that creates leverage. And I want to be very clear about something because this is where most people are completely misunderstanding what's happening. Just using AI is not the advantage anymore. That phase is already over.
At this point, almost everyone has access to the same tools. People are opening ChatGPT, generating images, testing random prompts, and telling themselves they're in the game. But if you actually look at their results, nothing meaningful has actually changed. Their income hasn't moved, their output hasn't increased in any serious way, and they're still stuck trying to figure out why it feels like AI isn't doing much for them. The reason is because they're using it at a surface level. They're treating it like a shortcut instead of using it as a system that compounds over time. And because of that, they're missing where the real opportunity is right now. There's a shift happening, and it's happening quietly. The people who understand how to package AI into actual digital products are pulling ahead very, very fast, while everyone else is still experimenting without direction. The old model of selling basic templates, low effort designs, and generic products is getting saturated because AI made it too easy. When something becomes easy for everyone, it stops being valuable. What's valuable now is not the tool, it's how you use it, how you structure it, and how you turn it into something people are actually willing to pay for. That's where the money is moving. So in this video, I'm gonna break down 10 digital products you can create using AI that are actually working right now in 2026. These aren't outdated ideas and they're not theory. These are real opportunities that people are using to generate serious income, and in some cases over $50,000 a week. And I'm gonna show you how they work, how they're built, and how much of the process AI can realistically handle. Now, before I go deep into this, I wanna give you background on myself so that you know I have the credentials to be speaking on this matter. My name is Terrence Chister. I've generated over $141 million in sales. Yes, that's a real number. I've traveled to 46 different countries. I paid off my parents' house. I've owned my dream car and house, and most importantly, worked with over 50,000 plus business owners to help them scale their companies. Idea number one is AI faceless content pads. Obviously, you need to know what niches you're gonna do it in. So I'm always big on fitness, business, relationships. You can also do motivation. Examples of this could be, let's say, 30 to 100 short form videos. You also have hooks or captions or scripts, okay? You also have, fully edited content. Again, this is obviously faceless, as I said before, and you could probably sell this between, I don't know, 50 to 300 bucks a pop. So these could be one-off offers. So we'll just come right over here. We'll do 50 to 300. Okay. Now, the way that you can actually create this, because that's gonna be the biggest question, is you could use ChatGPT for the hooks and the scripts. You could use Runway or Pika or Sora for the visuals. So think of that like images, videos, mostly images, but could be one of the two. You could use CapCut or Opus for batch edits. So this is kind of the package. You could do something in the fitness, business, relationship, or motivation niche. You could sell it for 50 to 300 bucks a pop. Ideas would be 30 to 100 short form videos, hooks, captions, scripts, fully edited content. And then these are the AI you would use. Use the ChatGPT more for the hooks and the scripts. You would use these for the visuals, so Runway, Pika, Sora, and then CapCut and Opus for the batch edits. So the AI does 90% of the work on this. I give this a 6 out of 10 difficulty, and maybe it would cost you 30 to 100 bucks a month. So this would be the first idea that you could potentially use. Idea number two is gonna be micro niche courses. And I would probably say you could sell this anywhere between $27 to $197 a pop. Okay, and some different ideas that you could use would be like how to get 10K TikTok followers in 30 days. So it's very specific, or how to start a faceless YouTube channel with AI. Okay, so something really simple like that. The way that you want to build this, okay, we'll just go through these in order, is ChatGPT with the outline and lessons. Number two is you could use AI voice or your voice to create it, or yours, okay? So if you really were really lazy, I guess you could use AI. I would probably just do your voice, but you could literally use AI if you wanted to. Then you would use screen recordings and AI visuals. And then finally, you could host on Gumroad, okay? You could even use School or Kajabi. And this would probably honestly only take you about 1 to 2 days. I would give this, about 85% of the work for this could be done with AI. I'd give it a 5 out of 10 difficulty, and you're talking maybe 20 to 80 bucks a month cost in terms of what it's gonna cost you to actually build this out. So this would be my idea number two, which would be micro niche courses. Now, idea number three is gonna be AI automation templates. And this is where you're gonna be selling systems instead of designs, because the first two are basically designs, okay? People are gonna be paying, I would say, anywhere between $50 to $500 a month for stuff like this. So the nice thing I like about this idea as well is it's based on recurring revenue, okay? Now some stuff you could use, it could be Notion dashboards, okay? You could also sell AI workflows. You could also sell, obviously, automations. You use, let's say, Go High Level or ClickFunnels or any type of software system, Simply Text, whatever. You could sell what literally you've already created, okay? So some examples of those could be Content Machine OS, right? So you could say, hey, here's the template for how to create content. So you do Content Machine. You could also say like AI lead gen system. Okay, so here's how to get lead gen. So again, these are like systems and automations that it's like, hey, here's how you follow this process. You could also do YouTube automation dashboard. So hey, here's how to create YouTube content, YouTube automation dashboard. Okay, and then the way you could build this, you could use Notion or Airtable. Okay, so if you're not familiar with those, get familiar with that. I like Notion the best, to be quite honest, but those are definitely things you could do. You could use Zapier or Make. I use Zapier. Okay, that's how you create automations. That basically what Zapier does is it connects two different softwares so you can continue to automate it. And then finally, if you use ChatGPT for prompts, okay? So when I say prompts, that's gonna be the text, the copy, you know, whatever you need to use for that, okay? And you're basically packaging it a business in a box. It's like, hey, I will give you this automation template and it's gonna fix either your content or your lead gen or your YouTube automation, so you don't have to think about it anymore and it just plops it right in front of you, okay? So on this one, it's gonna be a little bit more manual work. I'd say AI does about 70% of the work. It's gonna cost you anywhere between, I'd say, $0 to $50, okay? Sometimes you can do zero because they'll give you like free software and you could actually create it before you actually have to pay for it, but usually it'll cost you closer to $50. And then I guess is a difficulty of 7 out of 10. Okay, so this is gonna be idea number 3. It's gonna take a little bit more skill, but you can make a lot more money. And the thing I really like is it could be recurring revenue for you. Now, idea number 4 is gonna be personalized AI avatars or influencers, okay? When I think of this is kind of like those OnlyFans models that you've seen that are actually fake. It's just AI. But what you can do is you can create an avatar and then you can sell stuff through them. So for example, so here's your influencer up here at the top. And then branch off from that, you can sell different things. So for example, you could sell a profile pack. It's like, hey, I have this influencer, and then here's a bunch of stuff you can use on their profile for content and stuff like that. Something else you could use is like branding kit. It's like, hey, here's an entire, kit for like, here's a profile picture, here's like headshot for the website, whatever you want to do, you could actually create that. And then number 3 is gonna be content bundles, okay? So basically, obviously, this is an AI avatar. More than likely, you're either gonna use it for some type of videos or pictures. I would say most of it's gonna be pictures though, right? It's gonna be pictures around this. I've seen a lot of this done with like OnlyFans stuff. I'm not suggesting you do that. Like I actually wanna stay away from that industry, but you could definitely do that. People could be selling this, I would say on average, between 100 to $1,000 a pop, okay? Because basically, they're giving you an entire setup to go and do this. Now, the way you could create this would be Midjourney or SDXL. That's gonna be how you create your avatar. So avatar creation. The next thing is gonna be 11 Labs. Okay, that's gonna be your voice. And then the last part is HeyGen or Synthesia is how you say it. I think Synthesia, okay? Because I'm gonna use it a couple times. And that's gonna be for actually the talking videos. So if you need your avatar to actually speak, that's gonna be what you're gonna use that for. Now, the AI will do about 85% of the work here, okay? I'm gonna give this probably, a 7 out of 10, and the cost is gonna be anywhere probably between 50 to $100. So as you guys can see, like everything I'm giving you, yeah, it takes a little time, takes a little bit of effort. There's gonna be a little cost involved, but overall, it's gonna be a great idea that you can do with pretty much relatively no work. Idea number 5 is AI ad creative packs. Companies are really desperate for these because one of the hardest things to do for companies is actually like get their ads out there and make it profitable and continue coming with new creatives. So you could basically sell like TikTok ads, Facebook ads, obviously whatever they want to use it for. And I think you could sell these between, I don't know, like $100 to $500 a pack. The other thing too is you can make this recurring. So you can just continue to create ads for them, especially if they're videos. I think this will work really well for you. So the way you can do this is ChatGPT creates the hooks, okay? So we just use ChatGPT for the actual copy. We'll just say copy, okay? In terms of the AI video tools to generate clips, okay? So AI video tools to generate clips. And then you can use CapCut to format the ads, okay? So that's for formatting. Okay, so you're not selling the design here, you're really selling conversion. Like we want these ads to actually convert. So the cool part is on this one, I'd say 90% of the work can be done by AI. You're gonna be looking at about what, 50 bucks a month to use these types of softwares. And I'm gonna give this difficulty probably a 6 out of 10. I would say this is probably one of the easier ones to do and probably one of the most profitable, especially if they convert, right? Because if you can make really cool AI ads, like there's a lot of companies that run ads, and if they don't know how to do it, you could sell it to them and you could just put on a recurring service. So like 50 bucks a month, you could sell quite a few of these, and like 100 to 500 bucks a month, you could sell it as a pack or you could sell it as a recurring service. I really like this one. This is actually probably one of my more favorite ideas out of the ones I've done so far. Now, idea number 6 is AI resumes and then LinkedIn optimization ads. I've seen this work really, really well for career coaches. Like, so if anyone is like, hey, I'm gonna help you, make more money or get a higher paying job, this works really, really well because it's a lot of time and effort to actually continue to update people's resumes. So I like this idea a lot. Something you could do for this is like, you could sell this between, 20 to 150 bucks a pop, okay? And then what you could do is you do ATS for optimized resumes. You can then use AI prompts for job applications. And then finally, you can use LinkedIn bio generators. In terms of what you're gonna use to make this a reality, you can use ChatGPT for writing. So ChatGPT is always gonna kind of be your go-to for copy. It's pretty easy. You can use that every single time. Canva is gonna be for design. And then finally, you're gonna use AI scoring tools. So that's gonna be for optimization. So it'll give you like a score and it's like, hey, here's how you can improve the resume or make it a little bit better, so on and so forth. So you basically will bundle it all together and it's a higher perceived value, and there's a lot more people who want a job than they want to start a business. So that's actually a big market for this. I would say like the AI will do 80% of the work, okay? In terms of the cost, it's gonna be about 10 to 30 bucks a pop, okay? And then finally, the difficulty, I would give this like a 4 out of 10. Okay. And so it's still easy, but it's way more upgraded. And there's a lot of people do. So I would say this, especially like I've had clients who have career coaching offers. This is really good for that type of service. Now, idea number 7 is going to be AI print on demand systems. Okay. So basically you could like sell the design packs for this. So like ideas could be like 100 streetwear designs, or you could sell something that's like AI hoodie brand kit, starter kit. Now, people aren't gonna want random things. They're gonna want a system that they can reuse forever. So the tools you would use to make these type of designs is I would use Midjourney or Leonardo, okay? You can use Photoshop or Canva, okay? Or mockup generators, okay? There's a lot out there. You just literally type in mockup generators, okay? So the AI does about 90% of the work. I'd say the cost would cost you maybe, 30 bucks a month. And then the difficulty, I would say, is like 5 out of 10. So this is way better than like basic Etsy art, right? Like you can make this, you could give it to people who have print on demand types of t-shirts. So you're like, hey, I came up with these designs, and you're selling the designs. The cool thing now is like, it's actually making designers' jobs a little bit obsolete because AI is so good at like making pictures and different prints very quickly. Now, idea number 8 would be AI newsletters or content subscription packs. So I would be more prone to do the newsletter because I feel the newsletter is a little bit more sticky, but you could also do the content subscription packs, okay? So it's gonna be like, oh, here's 100 new hooks every single week, or here's 30 TikTok ideas per week, something like that. The way that you would actually sell this, I would say anywhere between like 10 to 50 bucks per month. And then the way that you would create this, right, is you use ChatGPT to create the content. You would then use Notion or Google Docs to deliver it, right? So you're actually like what you're giving it to them on. Pretty simple, right? So it's like, here's what to say, here's the copy, here's the emails, etc. And then the last part would be Stripe or Gumroad for your subscription, right? To actually take payments. And then what I would say in terms of this offer is like the AI does like 95% of it. Like you really wouldn't have to do hardly anything. The cost is gonna be pretty low, like I'd say 20 bucks a month. And then the difficulty is about 5 out of 10. So it's low effort, but really high scale. Idea number 9 is gonna be AI voiceovers or audio packs. So a couple different ideas is like obviously voiceovers for anything. So you can literally have a voiceover for a video or like a VSL, right? You can also do, let's say, meditation. That's a popular one. You could also do story narrations. You could also do podcast intros. And then the way that you create this is 11 Labs. 11 Labs is one of the best ones out there, I think, in terms of actual audio. You have also Play HT, okay? And then finally you have AI sound generators. You could just type that in, but there's a lot, okay? So you can sell packs like, here's a YouTube voice pack, or here's a podcast audio voiceover, or whatever you want. Like obviously it just has to be something voice related. And then I would say you could sell this between 20 to 200 bucks a pop. And then I would give you, 95% of this can be done by AI. Super, super simple. The cost would be, I would say, like around 20 bucks a month. And then the difficulty for this one, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10, okay? So this is number 9. Again, like you kind of need to decide, like, do you wanna make a little bit more money per se, or you wanna be a little bit easier? Usually harder things to do, you can charge a little bit more, but there's trade-offs here, but you can just pick whatever one makes more sense for you. Now, last but not least, is gonna be number 10, which is AI websites or funnel templates, okay? And this is actually a really good one because a lot of people just are not honestly smart enough or capable enough to do this. So for example, pre-built landing pages, funnels, VSL pages, sales pages, stuff like that. Coach, a funnel template you could have for e-com business, you could have for a lead generation business, like anyone who's running ads or has a company pretty much needs a website or a funnel, okay? So you could sell this between, I'd say anywhere between 50 to $1,000 a pop. There's also some people like you could charge $15,000. It really just depends on, you know, how many people you're trying to sell it to. Obviously more people, this will be in their price range, but you can make a lot of money from selling stuff like this. And the way that you can actually build this out is gonna be Framer or Webflow AI. So that's actually gonna create the actual funnels. Then you can use ChatGPT for copy. And then you can just use AI design tools to come up with an actual design for you, okay? So you're basically selling a way for companies to make money. And so people usually will pay a little bit more for this, okay? So the AI will do about 75% of the work. I think you're gonna need to have a little bit of skill in terms of how it should look a little bit. Like you need to have a little bit of eye for that. The cost is gonna be between 20 to 150 bucks a month, depending on the different types of softwares you use. And then I give this one like an 8 out of 10, okay? So these are 10 different ideas that you guys can use. Pick the best one based on how much AI is used, the cost for you, and the level of difficulty.
But the part that actually determines whether this matters for you or not has nothing to do with the ideas themselves. The reality is that information is no longer the bottleneck. There are more tools, more access, and more opportunities than ever before, and most people still don't get results because they never move past the thinking phase. They watch, they analyze, they tell themselves they'll start when they feel ready, and that moment never really comes. What actually separates the people who make money from this and the people who don't is how quickly they take something like this and turn it into action. The window with AI right now is still open, but it's not gonna stay this open forever. Every one of these opportunities will get more competitive over time, and the people who move early are always the ones who benefit the most. You don't need to do all 10 of these ideas, and you don't need to overcomplicate it. You need to take one that makes sense to you, build it as fast as possible, and get it into the market. Once you do that once, you start to understand the process, and from there, it becomes repeatable. That's when things start to compound, and that's when this actually turns into something real instead of just another video you watched. I hope everything I went over this helps you or sparks some ideas. Wishing you all tons of success in 2026. I'll see you guys in the next video. If you want to understand how someone like myself is making $53,000 per day selling digital products, then stay till the end of this video because I'm going to show you exactly how, along with multiple paths you can take to do so. It is about choosing the right path of digital product and building it in a way that can actually scale. Because some digital products naturally grow into massive businesses, while others almost never reach serious revenue no matter how much time people spend on them. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the types of digital products that allow someone to realistically scale to numbers like $53,000 per day, why they work, and how people can structure them so they can grow into very large online businesses. Before we get into this, let me give you a little bit of background on myself so you understand that I have the field of experience to be speaking on this subject matter. My name is Terrence Chister and I've generated over $141 million in sales. I've worked with over 50,000 plus business owners, all while being able to travel the world and do cool things like pay off my parents' mortgage and build schools in Africa. So now that you understand my background, if you watch this all the way through, you will understand the different digital product models that make numbers like $53,000 per day possible and how to think about building one that actually has that kind of upside. Let's get into it. So first up, we have the most common online courses. So when most people think about digital products, they think, hey, I'm going to buy something, I'm going to take a course, and that's basically it. That honestly is the laziest way that you can make money. There's actually a lot better ways in my personal opinion, but I actually don't think of this usually when I'm talking about digital products. Now, when you're talking about an online course, usually you're talking around, $47 to $97. Maybe sometimes it'll be as high as $2,000. That's probably usually the limit, but it's going to be somewhere in that range, right? So we'll just go back and we'll say 47 to 2,000, something like that. Now, the first thing I ever built was called the Rapid Muscle System. So we'll just call it RMS, and I sold it for $47. Now, the benefit is I was able to learn a lot of the operational sides of things. I was able to learn how to build funnels and emails and SMS and how to set up automations. I mean, I literally had no idea how business worked. And so this was a full education that most people just never actually learn these things. The downside was that that because it was $47, there's only two ways to really sell. You can sell things virally or with ads. Well, the issue with ads is that it would usually cost $100 to make one $47 sale. So that doesn't work. So I'd have to go viral. But as we all know, going viral is very hard, right? Most of us cannot do it. So this usually only works really well if you have a big following, or you don't care if you make a lot of money, but you're just lazy, right? And you're like, hey, if I make a little money here and there, it's fine. But when I sold this, I only made $2,000 over 2 years. And the reason was that I would post on social media. I wouldn't DM anybody. I wouldn't get on any calls. I couldn't afford ads. And so I just really spun my circle. So you can definitely make a lot of money doing this, but the person that usually does well with this type of offer is going to be like a Kim Kardashian, Justin Bieber, someone famous who gets a lot of eyeballs. And so it makes more sense for them to not build out this massive team, but just convert a fraction of those eyeballs into customers. So next up, we have paid membership communities. Now, membership sites, the benefit is that it's recurring income. So if I have a membership community, I do like the fact that it's recurring income, but the problem usually is that when it's information based, people usually fall off after about 3 months. Okay. So let's say, for example, you're selling something for, $47. The problem is that after 3 months, those people are going to go ahead and fall off. And so you might make $150 and then you're constantly putting out content, but after a while, like it's kind of the same thing, right? And so if you're going to actually run a successful membership course, usually you want to build it in a way where it's going to continue to deliver value. So for example, like that's why a lot of times this isn't actually along the same wavelength, but it's similar, is tech. It's recurring. It's not a membership site, but people still have to pay for the tech to get it to work. Or someone might pay for like subscription for clothes, right? It's like, hey, every single month we're going to bring you new clothes or shoes, or I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff out there. There's like shaving. Those are the types of things where people are like, hey, at least I'm getting new value. But when it's around info products or information, I don't see this work as well. Now, again, it goes back to the same thing. If you're going to do some type of membership site, it's usually going to be low ticket. And that means you're going to have to go viral or you're going to have to run ads. Again, this is going to be more for someone who can go viral, who has a big following. What you're going to notice is that more times than not, people fail in business because they're constantly going after these viral tactics. Well, if it was that easy to go viral, more people would do it. So instead, you need to build around ads. And we're going to get into a couple other options you can do if you go with ads. But the benefit is when you run ads, if you sell something, let's say for $3,000, I'll show you this in a second, and you spend $1,000 on ads, you make $2,000 of profit. And those margins allow you to scale and actually make money. But if you're just going to constantly try to go viral and sell things for cheap, that's tough, right? And that's why most of the time this won't work. So again, if you have a big following or you don't want to do a lot of fulfillment, this is great, but it's going along the same wavelength of doing some type of PDF or course, because ultimately, unless you have a massive following, it's not going to work out well for you. Okay, next up, we have business tech and systems. Now, when I think of business tech and systems, I think of all the things I learned back in the day when I sold the Rapid Muscle System. So most people don't know how to do this. This is going to be funnels, automations, emails, SMS, etc. So it's not that these are super difficult, at least for me, but it's that they do take a lot of time and consumption, and you have to learn the ropes. So you can go to someone easily and you could do what's called a micro COO offer, okay, or anything lesser. And you can say, hey, I will set up all your funnels, your automations, your emails, your SMS. Make sure all the systems are working properly so that you can run your business and let it function. And you can charge usually for this like anywhere between 3 to 5K a month, and maybe do about 2 hours of work a day. So I'm not saying you have to be a micro COO. You could also just be an operational manager, or you could be a tech support person. But the point is that there's a lot of business owners who need to run the operational side of a business, but they don't really understand how. They're just more of an idea person, right? They have this great idea, they want to execute on it, but they actually have no idea. Now, the benefit of this type of offer is, again, only way to make money is to go viral or ads. I'm going to keep saying the same thing over and over because that is the only way. It's either you get it for free, and usually you have to get a lot of eyeballs going viral, or you spend money. The benefit here is because you could sell this for 3 to 5 grand, is you could spend $1,000 on ads, you could get 100 leads, you have 10 calls, you close one person, and let's say you close that person at 3K. Well, you get a pocket 2 grand, boom, bada bing, you are now in a good place. So this is actually one of my favorite things to have people sell. It's not an ad agency per se. You're not running ads or doing media, but you're doing all the back end. And the thing is, back end stuff is very valuable because they always need it. It's always changing. If they do a new funnel or have a new website page, or they have to do new emails or SMS messages, new follow-up systems, you're going to need this type of system. So if you can start or learn business tech and systems, you can make a lot of money. And to be quite frank, if I wasn't a business owner and I had to start over again, this is probably what I would go into. You could easily, with this type of offer, make $20,000 a month, work 6 to 8 hours a day, and the retention of these clients is ongoing for a long time because they always need the tech stack and systems that you're going to implement. Next up, we have one of my favorites, which is coaching. And one of the reasons I love coaching thing is that there's zero cost in terms of fulfillment, but you can really jack up the price points. Now, why are you able to do that? It comes down to one word. You get more access. So someone goes, hey, Tanner, how much is it to work with your team? And I say a random number. Let's say I say 10,000 for 4 months. And we're doing a lot of intensive work. How much is it to work with you? I could say 100,000 for 4 months. Well, why would it cost more to work with me if it's the exact same thing? It's because of the access, right? So when you can access someone who's higher level than you or makes more money than you, or you deem as more valuable, you can push the price points. So for example, if I sell a $47 program, like I did back in the day, the Rapid Muscle System, all I did to start coaching in fitness is I raised that price point to $1,500 and I gave them one-to-one support. That's all I did. I was able to go from $47 to $1,500 because they got one-to-one support with me. And what that allowed me to do is, instead of spinning my wheels in circles trying to go viral, which I did for a long time, what I did instead is I then started running ads, and I could spend $1,000. I usually would get 100 leads. I'd get, 10 calls. And because I was really good at sales at the time, I closed like 4 deals. And at the time I was selling $3,200 packages. So 3,200 times 4, if I can do the math really quickly. So 12,800. I used to be a mathematician, believe it or not. That was a lot of cash that I can make very quickly just by pushing this price point up. And it's really just comes down to access, because people deem that more valuable. One-on-one is more valuable than group, so on and so forth. So people usually will ask me though, they'll say, Tanner, like, how do I come up with, something to sell, or what do I coach on? Or people will pay for anything. The key thing is this. I say this in a lot of my videos. You have to tie back what you sell to one of these 3 areas. Okay. So kind of think of these as overlapping. You have health, you have wealth, and you have relationships. So everyone in life wants better relationships. They want better health. They want more wealth. So what you do has to tie back to one of those 3 things. If it doesn't tie back to one of those 3 things, people are not going to pay you premium prices. The benefit is though, when you do tie it back to those things, they will. So for example, things that I've sold fitness coaching. I've sold business coaching or consulting, whatever you freaking want to call it. I've seen relationship coaching. I've seen people help with gardening. I've seen people help with handstands, like crazy stuff. The thing is, if you have a skill that ties back to one of these 3 things, start with that, because people go, well, I don't want to start a fitness business. I want to do what you do, Tanner. Start with what you know. If you don't know anything, which is a bunch of BS, you can literally go to sites. Well, obviously you could pay me. You could click the link down below. We could teach you something. Or if you want to go a free route, you can go to udemy.com or allison.com. Now, udemy.com, I believe, is more $100 and less, and you can learn like anything you want on there. That's actually where I learned Facebook ads for like $50. But if you don't want to do that, you could go to allison.com. It has 1 L, and you can go there and then it's free. You can type in anything you want and learn that skill. So you go to udemy.com, you go to allison.com, and you learn a skill around that. And the reason I like it is, again, I'm a bigger fan of running ads versus going viral. So this is one of my favorite things to do, because you can push the price point up simply by giving people more access, and people are willing to pay more for it, which allows you to run ads and helps you be a lot more successful. Now, number 5 is going to be software, or we'll say micro niche, or micro SaaS is probably better, tools. Okay. So software or micro SaaS tools. Now, the great thing about software is if it works, it will crush and you can make a ton of money. The hard thing is it's really hard to get into it. It takes a lot of capital, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy. To give you guys context, I've been working on a piece of software for the last 2 years. It could literally just be a complete net negative. Like I can make no money from it, but I've been working on it for the last 2 years. So hopefully it turns into something, right? Now, the other thing you could do is like a micro SaaS tool. So that's like a Google Chrome extension. So it's going to be a lot cheaper, a lot safer, and you can give it to business owners typically for things that they do on a daily basis. What I notice is a lot of the softwares out there, a lot of business owners actually need or can use them. So as I've been growing in business and I'm going from coaching, consulting to higher level things, I'm like, hey, what are the type of softwares that my clients use? And then just building that for them. Now, it takes a lot of time, money, effort, etc. But again, these can really crush. So a piece of software I'm working on right now, hopefully by the time this video comes out, it's going to be launched. It's in beta phase right now, but it's $1,500 a month. Now, if a business must use this to be successful in business, if I get at $1,500 a month, that's $18,000 a year. And the benefit with selling this is you usually can give free trials. So you can get people in really easy. The hard part is the upfront capital and the level of experience and time and stuff like that. It takes a lot of stuff. Now, micro SaaS tools are usually going to be cheaper, like $97. So for example, there was actually a company out there called Group Track, and I used them at one point. I don't use them anymore. Nothing wrong with them, etc. But what they did is when people came to your Facebook groups, you could let them in and then they would scrape their names and emails and phone numbers based on the questions you asked. And then that would go straight into my email system. They were the only ones who could do it at the time. I think it's a little different now, but they were the only ones who could do it at the time. So they could go out and sell this for $97 a month and people would just pay for it over and over and over again because they needed it to be able to scrape that information of people people who came into their Facebook group. So this is actually one of my favorite ones. I actually think this is better than all of them, but it's the hardest one to get into. So, apples for apples, oranges to oranges, like this is not where I would start. But if you have experience in one of these areas or you're willing to take a heavier risk, this is something that I really like. Coming up next is number 6 is actionable playbooks and guides. So we'll just call these guides or PDFs. So again, this kind of goes back to selling a course or so. This is usually a one-off thing. So it's not, curriculum and a bunch of videos. It's a one-off thing. But again, the issue with this is usually you have to go viral and you can't afford ads. So this could be like a protein recipe book. Okay. So protein foods, or this could be, how to run Facebook ads. So it's just one specific thing usually. And the benefit is it's easy. It's not a lot of fulfillment. You could sell it really cheaply, but again, you usually have to go viral. If you don't have higher price things on the back end, this doesn't work. So again, number 6 isn't bad. It's a great way to start. You can get your feet wet. You can learn how to kind of build stuff, kind of learn how to market, but ultimately it's really only built for people who have really big followings. This isn't going to be my go-to for business owners who want to make a lot of money. Like for most people, you don't have a following, so we have to run ads, and this just does not support that model. So all 6 of those can work, but for the majority of you who don't have big followings, I would stick with either number 3, which was the systems, right? Where you go into someone's business and you actually build out the systems and you're a little bit of a micro COO, or you do the coaching or consulting where you can push the price point simply just teaching people what you know. And the reason is, again, for these 2, you can run ads. And at the end of the day, if you don't get to ads, I just think most people aren't successful. They start these businesses, they really struggle, they have a very hard time, and they can't stick with it because they don't see any traction after years and years. So to give you guys context, in the first 2 years of business, I made $2,000. In the last 8, I've done 141 million. Big difference. I'm not saying you're going to do 141 million, but I am trying to say that the model matters a lot. Warren Buffett himself says it's not about how hard you wrote, it's about what vehicle you're in. It's the same thing here. So when you look at digital businesses generating numbers like $53,000 per day, the pattern is almost always the same. They're not chasing dozens of different ideas. They usually focus on solving one valuable problem, packaging that solution into a scalable digital product, and then improving it over time as the audience grows. Digital products rarely become large businesses because they're complicated. They become large because they solve a real problem clearly and consistently reach the right people. So if you're thinking about building a digital product business, the most important step is not trying every single model at once. It's choosing the one that fits your experience, your strengths, and the type of problem you understand best, and then committing to building it properly. If you guys found this helpful, make sure to subscribe and follow along for more insights on building scalable online businesses and digital products, or reach out to me personally using the links in the description or pinned comment below, and I can help you drive real results fast. If you want to get ahead of 99% of people right now, one of the biggest unfair advantages you can build is learning how to use AI properly. And I say properly because that is where the separation actually happens. Most people right now are technically using AI, but they're using it at such a surface level that it's not really changing their life, their output, or their income in any meaningful way. They're asking it random questions, getting average responses, and then wondering why they are not seeing massive advantages from it. Meanwhile, there's another group of people quietly building real leverage with it. They're getting better output, making faster decisions, organizing their businesses better, creating content quicker, and using AI in a way that actually compounds over time. That is where the real advantage is. It's not just in using AI, it is in knowing how to use it better than the average person. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the exact ways you can use AI to separate yourself from almost everybody around you, even if you're a complete beginner. I'm going to show you the frameworks, the setup, and the practical moves that actually make this useful instead of gimmicky. Now, before we get into this, let me give you some context on where I am coming from. I've spent years building content, scaling brands, understanding systems, and figuring out how to move faster in business and execution. And what I can tell you with full confidence is that AI is one of the biggest leverage shifts I've seen in a long time. If you understand how to set this up the right way, you can save an insane amount of time, make better decisions, and operate at a level most people simply are not operating at yet. So if you stay with me through this whole video, you're going to walk away with a much better understanding of how to actually use AI to get ahead instead of just playing around with it. Let's get into it. The first thing you need to understand is that most people are using AI in a way that is way too casual. They're treating it like a fun little tool instead of what it actually is, which is leverage. What I mean by that is the average person opens up ChatGPT, asks it something basic like write me a caption, give me 10 ideas, summarize this paragraph, or make this sound better. And yes, technically that is using AI, but that is not the kind of usage that gets you dramatically ahead of other people. That kind of usage might save you a few minutes here and there, but is not transforming the way you think, execute, or build. It is basically just digital convenience, and convenience is fine, but convenience alone is not what creates separation. The people who are actually pulling away from everyone else are using AI differently. They're not just asking it to do little one-off tasks, they're using it to improve how they make decisions, how they organize information, and how they build repeatable systems, and how they increase the quality and volume of their output. That is the massive difference. It is the difference between using a calculator once and building an entire machine that helps you solve problems faster every single day. One is occasionally helpful, the other is real leverage. And that is why I say most people are using AI wrong. They're interacting with it, but they're not building anything with it. They're touching it, but they're not integrating it into the way they operate. And because of that, they stay average while thinking they are ahead. If you want to separate yourself, you have to stop looking at AI as something you can occasionally use and start looking at it as something you can structure into your everyday life, work, and thinking. Once that mindset shifts, everything starts to change. The next thing I will say, and some people are not going to love hearing this, is that if you are serious about using AI at a high level, you need to stop approaching it with a cheap mindset. A lot of people want a huge edge, but they want to build it entirely for free, and sometimes that mindset actually costs them more in lost time, worse results, and a lower quality output than the subscription would have cost in the first place. If you're using AI constantly, whether for content, business decisions, writing, ideation, systems, analysis, or research, then having access to better models and better features matters. It matters because better tools create better outputs, and better outputs affect everything else downstream. People will spend money without thinking twice on food delivery like Uber Eats, random subscriptions, and things that do not move their life forward at all. But the second you tell them to spend money on a tool that can actually increase their productivity, their speed, their earning power, they suddenly become hesitant. That is just backwards thinking, because if a tool can help you think better, move faster, write better, analyze smarter, and save you hours every week, that is not an expense in the normal sense. That is leverage. And leverage, when used properly, pays for itself many times over. I'm not saying spending money magically makes you better. It does not. But if you're serious about getting ahead, you should be willing to invest in the tools to make that possible. The bigger mistake is acting like the free version of everything is enough while wondering why your results still look average. So before anything else, understand this. If you want professional level outcomes, start treating the setup seriously. Do not handicap yourself and then act surprised when the results are weak. One of the biggest reasons AI gives people weak or generic responses is because it has almost no real context about them. Most people are starting from scratch every single time they open a chat window. They're asking for strong output from a system that does not actually know anything about their role, their goals, their preferences, their business, their tone, constraints, or priorities. That's a huge mistake. If you were working with a real employee, a consultant, or an assistant, or an advisor, you would not expect them to do amazing work for you without context. You would have to explain who you are, what you do, how you think, what matters to you, what kind of businesses you run, what your goals are, and what kind of output you may prefer. The more they know, the better they can help you. AI works in the exact same way. That is why one of the smartest things you can build is what I would call a master context document. This is essentially a document that explains who you are, what your role is, what your business is, what you care about, how you make money, who you serve, what your priorities are, and how you want AI to think when helping you. And the beauty of this is you do not need to sit there and overthink how to create it from scratch. You can literally ask AI to interview you and build it with you. You can tell it your role, the type of work you do, what kind of business or life situation you're in, and ask it to generate the questions needed to create a complete context profile. That is where things start to get powerful, because now, instead of getting generic advice made for nobody, you start getting responses tailored to your actual situation. AI can give much better recommendations when it understands the full picture. It can think in relation to your goals instead of speaking in broad, vague generalities. And once you have that master context built, you can use it over and over and over again. That means better prompts, better outputs, better decisions, and less time repeating yourself every time you want help with something. This alone puts you ahead of a massive percentage of people, because most people never even set the foundation properly. They just keep asking random questions and wonder why the responses feel random too. Here's where things go from useful to genuinely powerful. Most people interact with AI in one-off moments. They ask for something, maybe tweak it once or twice, use the result, and then they move on. The problem with that approach is that even if you eventually get a good answer, you're not capturing the process that got you there. So the next time you want something similar, you have to start all over again. That is inefficient. What smart people do is different. They refine the output until it becomes exactly what they want, and then they reverse engineer the logic behind it so that they can reuse it in the future. In other words, instead of treating each good result like a lucky accident, they turn it into a repeatable system. This matters a lot. Let's say you're trying to write better emails, better content, better outlines, better sales copy, or better strategic plans. The first output is usually not great. You may need to go back and forth several times. You may need to adjust the tone, change the structure, remove certain language, make it tighter, make it sharper, or make it sound more like you. That refining process is typically normal. But once you finally get it right, the smart move is not to just copy that result and move on. The smart move is to ask the AI to create the underlying instruction set that would consistently produce that kind of output again. That way, you are not rebuilding from zero next time. You are now working from a repeatable blueprint. That is is where real leverage begins, because now you're not just using AI to create something once, you're building intellectual property around how you want work to be done. You're codifying quality. You're turning trial and error into a reusable asset. And that kind of thinking is exactly what separates professionals from casual users. Casual users want a result. Serious users want a system that keeps generating results. That is a completely different level of understanding, and it gives you an edge almost nobody around you is building. Another huge reason people get weak results from AI is because they keep everything scattered. Every new chat is random, every question is disconnected, every conversation starts from zero. And then people wonder why the responses feel shallow. Think about it like this. If you had a giant project in your real life, whether that was buying a house, building a business, planning a major launch, mapping out your finances, or solving a family-related decision, you would not keep all that information loose in random places and expect it to think clearly. You'd want all the relevant context in one place. That same logic applies here. When you organize your conversations, files, documents, decisions, and context around specific projects, AI becomes dramatically more useful because it can reference the entire body of information over time instead of reacting to isolated questions. That means if you have a business project, a personal finance project, a health project, content project, or family decision-making project, you can build separate containers of context around each one, and once the context is loaded in, you are no longer re-explaining the basics every time you want help. That saves a lot of time, but more importantly, it increases the intelligence of the output. Because the quality of AI responses is directly tied to the quality of context you give it, a disorganized person asking scattered questions is going to get scattered responses. A person with structured information, clear categories, and a project-specific context is going to get much better strategic help. This is one of those things most people completely overlook because they think the magic is in the prompt alone. It is not. The environment matters, the structure matters, the context matters. When you start organizing your life and work into AI-supported projects, the tool starts feeling more like a long-term strategic assistant and much less like a random chatbot. And once you experience that difference, it becomes very hard to go back to the messy way of using it. One of the most frustrating things about using AI, especially for writing, is that you can get something that is almost good, ask it to make a small improvement, and then suddenly it rewrites the entire thing in a way that loses what was working in the first place. A lot of people have had that experience. You are close to the output you want, you ask for a minor change, and then the whole thing comes back feeling different, less natural, or full of weird wording you never wanted. That is where a more edible workflow becomes important. Instead of constantly asking AI to fully regenerate everything, you want to work in a way that lets you refine and shape the output more precisely. You want to be able to preserve what is already good, manually tweak what needs work, and gradually guide the writing into the form you actually want. That kind of process is powerful because it allows you to create and edit at the same time. And this matters whether you're writing emails, scripts, offers, ad copy, SOPs, playbooks, strategy docs, or anything else. The goal is not to let the AI keep bulldozing the page over and over again. The goal is to collaborate with it in a way that makes the output more accurate, more natural, and more aligned with your real voice. This is especially important if you hate the obvious AI tone that a lot of outputs have. The over-explaining, the stiff structure, the unnatural phrasing, the generic language, all of that starts to go away more when you work in a refinement process instead of endless rewrite process. And once you have refined something into the exact style and quality you want, then again, you turn that into something reusable. That way, future output starts much closer to your standard instead of forcing you to fight with the model from scratch every single time. That is a much higher level way to use AI. Most people are stuck in the cycle of prompt, rewrite, hate it, prompt again, and waste time. The people who get ahead learn how to shape output intelligently instead of constantly resetting the whole process. Another thing that separates power users from average users is that power users do not want to keep repeating the same preferences over and over again. If you always want short responses, cleaner formatting, fewer unnecessary intros, less fluff, a certain tone, a certain structure, or specific writing characteristics, you should not have to remind AI every single time. That is why customizing the way it responds by default is such a smart move. Think of it like setting your home address in a Maps app. Once it is there, you no longer have to keep entering the same destination every single time. The system already knows where home is, it already understands your default, and that same idea applies here. If you know you want responses to be concise, sharper, more direct, more natural, more conversational, or more aligned with how you personally speak and write, then you should build those defaults into the way AI responds to you. That way, every conversation starts from a stronger baseline, and this is one of the easiest wins, but most people skip it. And then they spend half their time correcting style issues that never should have been there in the first place. The best part is you can even use AI to help you create these preferences. You can describe the way you like things written, the tone you prefer, the formatting you like, what you hate, and what you want removed, and have it help generate the right instruction set. That makes every future interaction interaction smoother. And that is really what this whole video is about. It's about reducing friction and increasing leverage. Small improvements in setup create major improvements in output. And when those improvements happen every single day, they compound hard. Once you have a process that works really well, one of the smartest things you can do is stop believing as raw text that you have to manually paste in every single time. That is where custom AI tools become extremely useful. If you have a certain type of output you use all the time, maybe that is writing scripts, structuring offers, analyzing content, creating email drafts, building outlines, coaching clients, or generating ideas in a very specific way, then you can package those instructions into a dedicated tool that performs that job consistently. Let's take ChatGPT, for example, when it comes to custom outputs. So come over here to the screen. I'll show you guys how I use ChatGPT. So first off, if you haven't done this part, make sure you go to the settings and then you go to personalization. And then in here in the custom instructions, what I say is be my ruthless mentor, challenge my assumptions, stress test everything. I need bulletproof thinking, not validation. So that gives me a lot more consistent feedback. And then what I usually do is I will use it as my personal coach a little bit. I'll say, hey, what is the best headline to use here? How can I make a better headline? Or here's my event structure. What can I do a little bit better? So I'll show you guys something I did recently. So I'll come over here and I'll go to my sites and I'll just take a random funnel and I'll take this right here and I'll take this link and I can say, here are 2 headlines. I need to get a headline at 30+% opt-in rate. Give me the best 2 you can possibly think of. Okay, so I don't use this to come up with stuff per se, but I will at least put in my best ideas and then try to give me feedback. Okay, and it'll come in and usually will say everything stinks, but again, it gives me the 2 best headlines. So here is the headline. And then it'll give me the sub headline, excuse me. So here's the first headline. Here's the second headline. I could also ask for sub headlines. So I could say, can you also give me sub headlines for that? Okay. And what that will do is it's nice because if you have to split test your pages at least once a week. The benefit of this is like, if you can't think of a headline to come up with, it'll give it to you. And really at the end of the day, when you're putting in different headlines, you just need a different one to test. And so this actually will come up with the test fairly quickly. And that changes everything because now you're no longer starting from a blank page and manually reconstructing the process. You're clicking into a specialized system that already understands the task, the method, and the expected output. This is one of the fastest ways to multiply productivity. It also makes delegation easier because once you create these repeatable AI workflows, they can be used by team members, partners, clients, or other people in your company without you needing to explain everything over and over and over again. That means the value is no longer stuck inside your head, it becomes operational, and that is a massive shift. Now let's utilize probably one of my favorite AIs and very popular now, which is Claude AI, to give you an even better example of the power of prompting. Claude is better for scripts, documents, frameworks, and deep breakdowns, where ChatGPT is almost just like a Google search engine in comparison. So coming back over here to the screen, this is Claude, all right? And they call it chat on when you use this, okay? So you could say, keep the follow-up questions, okay? So what I'll do in a situation like this is I'll actually come over here to my Slack. And what I'll do is I can actually grab different VSLs I might have made. Okay, so here is all right, here's a VSL. So what I can do is I can actually copy and paste this VSL that I came up with, and I'll come over to Claude and I'll say, hey, can you rewrite this better? Okay, so I'll say, can you rewrite this VSL to convert the most leads to book a call? Okay, so I'll actually put that in there and it's asking for a review. We're gonna skip that. Okay, so then it's gonna rewrite the script. Now, you may like it, you may not. What I find helpful though is this is a lot better with copy. And so I could say, hey, this is too short. It looks too short to me. So I say it's too short. Give me at least a 3-minute video. Okay, so I put that in, right? And it will rewrite it. And so the benefit of this is even if it's worse, like in which most cases it's not, it usually is better, but if it is worse, it at least gives you different things to think about. And that's the most beneficial thing I find with this is anything copy related. It's just a little bit better than ChatGPT. So I like to put VSLs, emails, sales page copy, even if you were going to put something on social media where you can at least get feedback. I wouldn't necessarily ask it up front, because I think that just makes you dumb over time. Like, I think you need to actually think of what to say, but I use it for that, because the future is not just going to belong to people who know how to use AI once in a while. It's going to belong to people who can take knowledge, process, standards, and judgment and package them into systems that other people can run with. That is real scale. Now here, what I want to show you guys is Gemini and how I use that. So I'm going to come back over to the screen, and what I use for here is I actually had, in 2020, I want to say 2024, I interviewed 40 plus people who had sold their companies anywhere between 40 million, which is the lowest, which is crazy, to 4 billion. Okay, so very, very crazy sales, super successful people. I mean, some of the most successful people on earth. And so what you see on the screen right now is I'm actually copying this and pasting it, right? So I actually already did it, so I don't need to do that again, but you guys can see all the notes here, right? And so here's the people, part of the Privada, how to grow Twitter, da, da, da. Like, I wrote a bunch of notes, and then what I asked it here is I said, hey, give me the best summary and takeaways, okay? And when you come down to the bottom, it gives me the main summary and takeaways. So like, if someone was trying to look for patterns, which is what I did, I interviewed these 40 multimillionaires and billionaires, and I was looking for patterns, it gives it to you in short. It's like, okay, here's a summary. Identify and solve real problems, leverage existing networks, focus on customer experience, scalability and recurring revenue, invest in long-term value, niche and community building, strategic partnerships over funding, et cetera. Now, if I could break it down even further, I could say, break it down even further into the top 3 things that are similar across the board. Now, what I really actually noticed when I did these interviews is that every single person usually had an internet marketing background, right? Because they learned how to run a business from very high level, from all the different things it takes to run a business. Number 2 is that they had easy to know fulfillment, right? So that usually is private equity, tech, or hedge funds. And then most of these people are not looking for ideas. Like, I always thought that was very interesting, that the ideas just kind of came to them, or they saw an opportunity and then they just went to that level. This right here, again, like, how good they work is going to depend on how good your inputs are. Sometimes I actually think like, what I come up with is actually better, but these are the 3 that I use for those different things. So I'll use ChatGPT for kind of my personal coach. Then I will use Claude for copy. And then what I use here for Gemini is more of like strategic structure and planning, if that makes sense. That's usually what I like to use it for. And this opens up monetization opportunities. If you build a really good AI workflow around a valuable task, that can become something you use internally, something you share, or even something you sell. A lot of people are going to build businesses around that alone. So if you want to get ahead, do not stop at using AI casually. Start thinking about how to convert your best methods into repeatable tools that save time and time again. These were just a few simple examples. I hope that helped. If you look at everything we just covered, the pattern is pretty obvious. Most people are using AI in a shallow way. They're asking random questions, getting average output, and calling it a day. The people getting ahead are doing something very different. They're giving AI better context, organizing it around projects, refining outputs into repeatable systems, customizing the response style, and turning strong workflows into reusable tools. That is why they are moving faster, that is why they're making better decisions, and that is why the gap between average users and serious users is only going to keep growing. Because this is not really about prompts alone. It is about how you think. It is about how you structure information. It is about whether you use AI casually, strategically, and that difference changes everything. At the end of the day, AI is not some little trend that you can ignore and hope goes away. It is here, it is getting better, and it is already creating a visible gap between the people who understand leverage and the people who do not. The good news is this gap is still early enough that most people have not figured it out yet. Which means if you take this seriously now, you can position yourself ahead of a massive percentage of people in a very real way. Not because you were smarter than everyone else, not because you were some technical genius, but because you were willing to learn how to use a powerful tool properly while most people are still using it like a novelty. That is the opportunity. So if you really want to get ahead of 99% of people with AI, build with it, organize with it, train it around your world, turn good outputs into systems, and start treating it like the leverage tool it actually is. That is how you separate. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe and follow along for more breakdowns like this. And if you want help building better systems, better content, and better ways to actually use AI for real world results, check out the links below. I'll see you guys in the next video.
I make $53,000 a day, and in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how so that you can too. So make sure you stick to the end, because if you don't, you can miss out on a life-changing opportunity. Now, most people hear something like $53,000 a day from one digital product and immediately assume it's either fake, exaggerated, or only possible for someone with a massive audience or a huge team behind it. And that's exactly why they never get anywhere close to it, because they dismiss it before they actually understand how it works. They think it requires something complicated, something they don't have access to, or something that's out of reach, when in reality, the model itself is a lot simpler than people expect. Now, at the same time, there's another group of people who are quietly building these kinds of systems without drawing attention to it, and their approach is completely different. They're not launching new products every month, they're not constantly reinventing what they're doing, and they're definitely not trying to do 10 different things at once. Instead, they focus on one thing, they build it correctly, and then they put all their energy into distribution and scale. That's where the real difference comes from. What's happening right now is a shift away from complexity and toward leverage. The people who are winning are not the ones doing more work, they're the ones building systems that allow them to do less while producing more. And if you don't understand that shift, you'll keep chasing new ideas, strategies, and new opportunities without ever actually building something that compounds. So in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly how one digital product can generate over $53,000 a day, how the system behind it actually works, and how you can replicate the same structure for yourself. Not in theory, not in a motivational way, but in a way where you can actually understand the mechanics and apply it. Before we get into that though, let me give you a bit of a background on myself so you understand that I had the credentials to speak on this matter. My name is Sarah Chistner, and over the last 8 years, I've generated over $141 million in sales. I've spent over $40 million on ads. I worked with over 50,000 plus clients across multiple companies. I built and scaled teams past 100 plus employees and installed growth systems across dozens of businesses doing $10,000 a month, all the way up to multi-million dollars per month. With that being said, let's get into it.
So I want to show you guys the easiest way to do this. I'm going to show you with math and logic, okay? Because a lot of people get very emotional about this, but it's actually very simple. Every human being wants more health, wealth, or better relationships. So I'll make some examples to drive home the point. If someone wants to get in better shape, they're gonna go to the gym or they're gonna eat healthier. Like it's not that they want to go to the gym per se or they want to eat healthy, they just want to have better health. If someone wants to make more money, they might be watching this YouTube video like you. It's not that you necessarily want to watch this video, you're just hoping this video will help you make more money. If someone wants better relationships, they might hire a psychologist or a therapist, right? The reason they're doing that is because they're hoping it's going to improve their relationship. They're not just hiring them to hire them, right? Like nobody wants to just spend money to spend money. So what you need to do is you first need to understand that your offer has to tie back to that. If it's just feel happier or feel better or something weird, it's not gonna work. So whenever you have an offer, it needs to tie back to one of these three main things because this is what's gonna allow you to push up the price point. If you can do that, people will pay a lot more money. So that's number one. Now, once you have figured out what you wanna sell here, let's say, here's three different examples, okay? So I could do fitness coaching, okay? That's very basic, but I'm gonna just give you guys a couple of easy examples. Okay, one could be like a ops manager, okay? So this could even be a job or a CEO, but like you're helping people operate their business better, so it's gonna help them make more money. Relationships, okay? You could be a like dating coach, or you could be some type of therapist, or I don't know, you could be like a divorce expert, whatever. Like these are the most basic, but there's a million variations of these things. Once you have something that ties back to one of these three things, you have to make sure that you have the proper price point. You have to think of it this way. There's only two ways to make money in business and get consistent lead generation. You either have ads or paid media, or you go viral. Okay, so you have organic viral content. That's really the only two ways that you can sell your services consistently, right? Because most people, the reason they don't make money in business is they can't make consistent sales because they're always trying to do this one, but they're not trying to do this one. So what I tell people to do is I say, hey, instead of trying to go viral and do something that's almost impossible, let's instead run ads to one of these offers. Now, when you run ads, it's gonna cost you money. So you have to make sure that the price point is going to work in a way that you can actually run the ads, okay? So for example, what most people will try to do, let's say they try to sell something for 40 bucks, right? Or they try to sell something for 100 bucks. The problem with that is that they now cannot run ads and they're going right back to trying to go viral, even if they don't know it. They're now trying to go viral, and going viral is just not that predictable. And I don't think it's a great way to try to build your wealth because you only have so many years before you die. So let's try to get this done sooner than later, yeah? So what we need to do instead is I would say at least $1,500 or more. So for example, if I sold fitness coaching, I could say, hey, for a 4-month program, it's $1,500. Could you sell that? Yeah, absolutely. People would pay that. If you were going to help someone in their business, could you sell $1,500 for service for 4 months? Yeah, you could probably sell way more than that. You could probably do that per month, right? If you
you were a dating coach, could you sell $1,500 service for 4 months? Yeah, you could. So the price point has to be high enough that you can actually run ads. Why? Because usually when you run ads, you might spend, let's say, $500 to $1,000 on an ad. Okay, and I'm gonna break this math down for you. So if you spend $500 to $1,000 on ads, that usually, let's say you get $10 leads. Well, if you get $10 leads, that's gonna be anywhere between 50 to 100 leads. Now, because I've been in business a long time, you're just gonna have to trust me on these numbers. Usually 50 to 100 leads, if you're doing everything correctly, which more times than not, you're probably not, but let's say you are, you're gonna get 5 to 10 calls. And then out of those 5 to 10 calls, you might close 1 to 2. So that's why we have to charge $1,500 or more, because that's gonna cost us $500 to $1,000 right here. And then we'll make 1 to 2 sales. So let's just say we make 2 sales, we'll be generous. So we made $3,000 and we spent $500 to $1,000. So that actually works. The metrics make sense. But if you did all that work to only sell a $100 product or a $40 product, that simply is not gonna get you where you wanna go. So the number one thing I want you guys to take from this video to start is it has to be in the proper niche, right? The offer has to tie back to the 3 things all human beings care about. You then have to price it properly so you can run ads, because you need consistent lead generation. You can't just hope on referrals. You can't just hope on, word of mouth. You can't just pray you're gonna go viral. That's just not gonna work. So you have to have those 2 things in place. So that's the actual math broken down. Now what I'm gonna do is I wanna go back and I want to talk more about the offer, okay? So that's the actual high level of what to do, like how we're gonna mathematically and numerically do it. Now, the part that I left out was how to make the offer enticing enough that people will want to buy it. Now, there's a bunch of different offers we could do as an example, okay? So I'm gonna write a few down. You could do, one of my portfolio companies has a day trading bot. So it does day trading, right? That is in the wealth sector, right? Hey, you just let this bot day trade for you. It's gonna make you X amount of money. It's gonna win X amount of times. It's gonna add X amount of income to your, business, or, if they're just doing a 9 to 5, you're gonna make extra income. If I'm doing, like, another wealth one could be getting college admissions, right? So some people will sell this, okay? Another one could be green cards. So that right there is like different offers. So it could be something super unique that is really easy to sell simply because it's just unique and a lot of people can't do it. So that would be number one. Now, if you took something like fitness coaching, what I do here is I tell people they have to have what I call 3 pillars, okay? So I'm only gonna break this down for fitness coaching because it's gonna be the same type of thing every time, but you have to come up with the top 3 reasons why someone would pay you as a fitness coach or a personal trainer versus someone else. And a lot of people miss this, right? And so they're always competing on price. So if you're gonna be the most expensive person in the marketplace, you're gonna sell at $1,500 when most trainers, let's say they do $50 a session in person. So the person will be like, well, why should I pay you $1,500 when I could like go in person and pay less than just if you were coaching me online or something like that? Fair question. So what I first do is I go, okay, what are the top 3 things that people want in fitness? So number 1 is gonna be nutrition. Number 2 is gonna be workouts. And then number 3 is like making sure they hire the right person. So right off the bat, I have to think about what is it I do differently than the rest of the competition. So what I would do here is the way I would set this up is if I'm on a sales call or I'm marketing and I'm talking to someone about my offer, it's not enough to just be like, hey, I'm gonna fitness coach you and it's $1,500 and like, just pay me. That's not gonna work. What I'd have to do instead is come up with these 3 pillars. And so for nutrition, I would say like, here's what most people do, okay? Most people, here's what I do, okay? And here's why it's better. So here's what most people do, here's what I do, and then here's why it's better. So here's actually when I started in this industry, I was a fitness trainer, personal trainer, I did all that. So what I would say is I say, look, so what most people do is they give you chicken, rice, and broccoli. Yeah, you're gonna lose weight, but you're not gonna stick with it. Obviously on your birthday, Hanukkah, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, you're gonna eat bad food. So the goal is not learning how to cut out bad food, it's learning how to eat bad food and still get results, right? Okay, cool. So what I do instead is I'm gonna teach you how to eat whatever you want without sabotaging results. And the reason I'm gonna teach you how to do that is because at the end of the day, learning how to eat bad food and still get amazing results is the key. So the reason that's better is because then on Christmas, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, you can still eat those bad foods, but still look amazing. It's not learning how to cut these foods out, it's learning how to live with them. So I'm gonna teach you how to eat whatever you want without sabotaging results. And that's what makes me different than everyone else on the marketplace. Does that make sense? Because most people, like, they literally are just selling like meal plans, they're not explaining anything. So I could get most people to buy in with that, okay? And these are just examples, guys, so just humor me. Like, I'm just trying to give you real examples so you could come up with this. So whatever you're selling, selling. It's what most people do. Here's what I do. Here's why it's different. That's the question everyone's asking them in their head. Because if you just sound like every other salesperson and you're just selling them stuff, they're like, yeah, but you're just trying to sell me. That's why people don't trust salespeople. You have to make it logical so that they will trust you. So number 2 would be workouts. So for most people, I'd say, so what most people do is they give you really difficult workouts, a lot of cardio, and you're gonna do it for a bit, you're gonna get results, but then you're not gonna be able to stick with it, and you're gonna fall off. So what I do instead is I let you work out as many days as you want, because ultimately the workouts don't matter. Why? Because 90% of results is from nutrition. If you work out, it's better for you, sure, but you can literally just not eat and you would actually lose body fat, right? Like you don't have to work out to get results. Like now I do think it's better because you need to build muscle and all those types of things, but end of the day, even if you just did a couple workouts a week, that's gonna be better than just going and doing as much workouts as possible, something that you can't stick with over the long haul, right? So if you did 3 workouts a week for a year, that'd be better than doing a workout every single day for a month. What I do here is I'm gonna teach you how to train however you want without sabotaging results. That's what makes me different than everyone else. So again, it's like I'm also giving them what they want, right? Because that's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear that they have to do a ton of training and a ton of dieting. Ultimately, if people eat in a calorie deficit, they can eat whatever they want, right? Now, obviously eating healthier foods and those types of things, you'll feel better. But I was telling them that they could have what they wanted, okay? And then finally I'd go, okay, and then the last thing is process, right? You have to hire the right person. So you know that you can train however you want without sabotaging results. You need to learn how to eat however you want without sabotaging results. But now you need to know how to hire the right person. So you can either hire me, you can hire a trainer, or you can do Beachbody, right? Like a Beachbody type program or P90X, whatever. So I'd say, look, you could get Beachbody and yeah, it's cheap and you're gonna lose weight really fast, but it's because they make it really hardcore and they restrict quite a bit. So a 200-pound man would get the same program as a 100-pound woman. Like that doesn't really make sense to me, right? But you'll get crazy results for sure. But at the end of the day, it's not something you can stick with. So I wouldn't usually recommend that. Number 2 is gonna be a personal trainer. Now, yeah, personal trainers are great, but like, we already said 90% of your results is nutrition. Most personal trainers at a gym are not legally allowed to give you nutrition protocols. So why would you pay money to a trainer that's focusing on 10% results and they're not incentivized to actually help you learn? Because if they do, you're gonna fire them. So instead, what I do, or what you could do is you could hire me. I'm gonna teach you how to eat and train however you want without sabotaging results. And the cool part is you pay me one time, you'll never have to pay me again for the rest of your life, unless that is, of course, you want the accountability. That also would help me get people to pay me a lot more because I say, hey, this is a one-time thing. And so I'd say, would you rather pay me one time at a high price versus a small amount for the rest of your life? The point I'm trying to make here, that's an example of the 3 pillars. The point I'm trying to make is those pillars were convincing to them to pay me more money than every other trainer on the marketplace. It was just what made me a multimillionaire. Whatever you're selling, you have to have some type of logical basis for why they should pay you versus someone else, unless your offer is super unique. So these up here, if you have something that you're really good at that's really unique, you can get away with that. But if you can't, you're gonna have to have some type of 3 pillars to really push across why you are a better option than everyone else. Otherwise, they're just not gonna pay you. So now that we've gone through that, why do most people fail with this? In short, most people fail because number 1, what they're selling is not compelling. So the way they describe it is pretty terrible. And then number 2 is they do not make the price points advantageous to what I just said. So on average, what most people are doing is they're selling something without the 3 pillars. Okay, so there's no 3 pillars. So we'll put that here, we'll put an X over it. Okay, so there's none of that. And then they don't have the proper price point. So all they basically do is they post on social media and they hope and pray that someone's gonna click and buy their stuff. And even if they do, they don't make enough money to actually change their life. For you to actually change your life, think about it, like you would have to at least probably increase your income by 33%, maybe 50%, maybe 100%. Like you're not gonna change your life by selling something for 40 bucks. So most people fail in this area because they simply do not position their offer as the best on the marketplace, right? So they're always competing on price. And then number 2, the price point is too low, so they can never run ads. And so when you put yourself in that type of spot, you cannot win. So until you get your offer good, convincing 3 pillars, which is gonna convince people to pay you more money than a competitor, and until you have the proper price points, you really are kind of in a tough spot and you're really not gonna move much. Now let's assume you have the proper price point, you have the 3 pillars. Here's a system that really will get you to $53,000 a day. So you're gonna take an ad like this and you're gonna run it to an opt-in page. Now, for those of you who don't know what an opt-in page is, it's just where you're getting their information, like email, phone number, stuff like that, okay? if they opt in, I'm actually gonna go this, you're gonna usually have, there's a lot of funnels you can run, but I'm just gonna walk you through one of the most basic funnels. You're gonna have a VSL with a video where they can book a call. Now, when they opt in, some people will opt in and they'll book a call, but most people won't. I'd say 90% of the people who opt in, who give you their name, their email, their phone number, are not actually gonna book a call. So what that means is you actually have to follow up. So you have to have emails, you have to have texts, you have to have voicemails, you have to have a free group. You might even have DMs, right? You could do a DM ad, right? So sometimes I'll do DM ads instead of running it to a landing page or a website, because then I can actually follow up via Messenger. I can do retargeting ads. So a bunch of stuff I could do. I could do all those things. Now, that's how you can follow up. They also have a chance to book a call here, and then potentially you could push them from these follow-ups to book a call. You could also do DMs, etc. Okay, so this is the typical process. Now, like I showed you earlier, on average, you might need to spend $1,000 to get 100 leads, to get 10 calls, to make one sale. That's also why I said the price point has to be at least $1,500 or more, because you have to be able to afford the ads. As you get bigger, as you get closer to $53,000 a day, it usually has to be $5,000, or it has to be $10,000 or whatever, because you're gonna have staff, you're gonna have employees, you're gonna have to make more money. So eventually, when my business got bigger, I was having to sell $10,000, $15,000 packages because it might cost me $3,000 for ads to make one sale, but then I also had to pay staff and employees and overhead and operational costs, and we had automations and softwares. Like, there's a lot of stuff that people don't think of. So in terms of getting the proper system, this is the system, okay? The system is you put money into the ads, you have a follow-up process, then on average, these are the numbers you're shooting for. Now, if you're not hitting those numbers, where do we look? Well, if your lead cost is too high, it's usually an opt-in page or an ads issue, right? Like, your opt-in page is not getting enough people to put in their info, or your ad is not drawing enough attention, one of the two. If your call cost is too high, either your VSL that's trying to convince people to book a call is off, or your follow-up process. Usually it's the follow-up process. Most people want to blame the VSL, it's the follow-up process. And then if you're not making enough sales, you're not good at closing over the phone, so you need to put time and effort into learning how to close over the phone a lot better. So that is the entire process. And then this allows you, when you know what the numbers need to be, to figure out where you're actually struggling and what needs to be a lot better. Now, let's say you get this process down. This is how it actually starts to compound. Okay, so at my peak, I was even making more than $53,000 a day. This is just recently, but at one point we were spending $500,000 a month to make $2 million. So when people think about scaling this out and making X amount, there's really just three things. Number one is putting enough money into ads. So you have to put enough money into ads. Number two is then making sure that you have enough conversions. And then number three is making sure you have enough re-signs. So I'm just gonna show you guys something simple on paper. Let's say I'm selling a $10,000 program, okay? And I'm trying to make $53,000 a day. So if I'm selling a $10,000 program, let's say I'm spending $10,000 on ads. Well, that's 1,000 leads a day at 10 bucks, right? It could be more, it could be less, but I'm just giving you an example. That would be 100 calls, and that would be 10 sales. So if I'm making 10 sales and it's a $6,000 price point, that is $60,000. So right there, you're already seeing like you're spending a tremendous amount of money on ads and you're pushing them through this system. Now, the only part we haven't brought up is like the re-signs, right? Because I would have a 30% re-sign rate from my typical client. So what that means is at the end of a program, if someone paid me $10,000 or $20,000, whatever it was, I would get 3 out of 10 of those people to pay me again, right? Which takes less pressure off the front end where these numbers don't have to be perfect. But in short, this is usually what I call the law of 10. Usually when you're running paid ads or paid marketing, whatever you spend, you're gonna get 10% of that as leads, 10% of that as calls, 10% of that as sales. Because when you get 100 calls, you might have no-shows, cancellations, people who don't buy, et cetera, et cetera. Sales reps on your team don't work, all that stuff. The only part we really haven't covered in terms of getting to this is obviously you're gonna need more staff at this point. Like, you need someone who's gonna run the ads, you need someone who's gonna take the calls, you need someone who's gonna message all the leads or follow up with the leads. You need people to do the coaching and fulfillment. But this is the actual process. So nothing really changes going from $1,000 a day to $53,000 a day. You're just doing the same process much faster. That's really all scaling is. A lot of people try to make scaling super complex and you have to do new things, but you're usually just doing the same things a lot faster. So what do the 1% do differently that most people are not doing to make $53,000 a day? Okay, so it's a couple things in short, right? It's really only a couple things. So number one And this is just what I see across the board. And I'm gonna write these all down so you guys can understand. Okay, so number one is they don't have 3 pillars in their offer. Their offer is just not compelling, right? Their offer is horrible. Okay, so that's not there. Number 2 is they have the wrong price point. Okay, so the pricing is completely off. Number 3 is they don't know how to run ads profitably. Okay, they're not good at that. Number 4 is they don't have the right skills. Okay, they don't know how to sell, they don't know how to market, they don't know how to follow up, they don't know how to convince people. They're really not sure how to do anything. Number 5 is that they don't know how to hire staff. They don't know how to hire staff, they don't know how to train. And then I'd say last but not least, like they could hire this out if you get big enough, but they don't know how to set up systems. Okay, so everything I showed you is pretty much what all the big dogs are doing that you may look up to. In short, they're doing a variation or version of this. But most people who are not at the top 1% don't know how to pitch their product in a way where people understand why they should pay more. They don't know how to price it properly, so they can't run ads. They don't even know how to run ads. Like they're like, hey, how do I even set this up? They don't have the skills like sales and marketing, and they don't know how to convince people to actually buy their product, which is a huge issue if you're a CEO. They don't know how to hire staff to come in and actually do those processes for them, because eventually as you get big enough, that's the trade you're making. You pay someone else money, and in return for that money, they do the work for you. So you don't actually have to do the work. And then finally, they don't know how to set up those systems. So I was showing, how to set up an ad, how to set up a funnel, how to set up an opt-in page. Like, they don't know how to do it, right? And that's part of the process. Like what I just showed you, it's like, yeah, it sounds easy on paper, but do you actually know how to set that thing up? And until you figure that out, you're basically gonna be stuck. So if you do need help with this, you guys can always click down on the links in the description below. This is what I help people build inside their companies, because until you have this process implemented, you have no shot at making $53,000 a day.
At this point, you've seen how this works in a way that's actually practical. This isn't something that requires a huge team, a massive budget, or years of experience. It starts with one product, one system, and a commitment to execute at a level most people won't. The reality is that most people will watch something like this, understand it on a surface level, and then go right back to doing what they were doing before. Not because they can't do it, but because they won't commit to it long enough to see it work. They'll overthink and they'll wait for the perfect moment that never comes. The people who actually get results from this are the ones who move quickly. They pick one idea, they build it, and they push it into the market without overcomplicating. They learn as they go, they adjust based on feedback, and they stay consistent long enough for the system to start working. So the real question is not whether this works. The real question is whether you're willing to simplify, focus, and execute at a level that most people avoid. Because if you are, this can change everything. If you're not, it will just be another video you watch. If you like this video, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like this. And if you want to personally help me help you achieve your goals with the same level of success I've achieved, just follow the links in the description below. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.
Some digital products quietly make a few $1,000s, and some make a few million, and a tiny handful turn into $1 million a year machines. Same internet, same tools, same platforms. So what actually separates them? It's not better funnels, and it's usually not better branding, and it's definitely not luck. The difference is that massive digital products aren't built like products. They're built like economic engines. In this video, I'm gonna show you how those engines actually work and how to build one yourself in 2026. Most creators think in terms of, what should I sell? Big founders think in terms of, what system can reliably produce value at scale? A $1 million product isn't just something people buy, it's something that creates predictable results, attracts the right customers automatically, improves over time instead of breaking under growth, and that's why small products feel fragile, while big ones feel inevitable. If your idea depends on hype, trends, or constant launches, it's not an engine, it's a campaign. Engines outlast campaigns. Here's something most people miss. Revenue doesn't scale with audience size, it scales with problem intensity. A mild inconvenience creates a cheap product. A painful, expensive, urgent problem creates a massive one. So think about it. People hesitate to spend $29 to learn a hobby, but they'll instantly spend $500 to grow revenue, or $2,000 to fix their health, or $10,000 to save their business, $50,000 to gain status or opportunity. The bigger the consequence of not solving the problem, the easier it becomes to sell the solution. So instead of asking, what niche should I enter, ask, what problem gets worse if ignored? That's where scale actually lives. Here's a fast way to know if an idea can reach $1 million. Does the market already have gravity? Meaning, are people already actively searching for solutions? Are companies already spending heavily here? Are competitors making serious money? If yes, that's actually a good sign. Competition is not a warning sign, it's proof of demand. So trying to invent a brand new market sounds exciting, sure, but it usually means educating customers from scratch, and education slows growth. Massive products usually enter markets that already move fast, and then they win by being clearer, faster, or more outcome focused. Most creators build content first. Big founders design the result path first, meaning what exact transformation happens? How quickly can users see progress? Where do they usually fail? What support removes friction? If you map the path to success clearly enough, the product almost builds itself because the job isn't to deliver information. The job is to remove obstacles between the customer and the outcome. The easier that path feels, the faster the product grows. Perfection feels productive, but early revenue is what actually validates scale. The first goal isn't polish, it's proof. Sell a rough version, test messaging, watch where customers struggle, and then refine based on behavior, not guesses. A messy product with real buyers teaches you more in a week than a perfect product with 0 customers teaches you in a year. Big products grow through feedback loops, not planning sessions. There's a point where a digital product stops feeling like a launch and it starts feeling like momentum. You'll notice customers start referring others. Testimonials start selling for you. Conversion rates improve naturally. Paid ads become predictable. Support questions decrease. That's the moment the engine turns on. From there, growth isn't about reinventing anything. It's about widening distribution, more channels, better positioning, stronger partnerships, higher pricing as proof builds. Massive revenue usually comes from doing the same thing, just in more places, for more people, more efficiently. Now, most digital products don't fail because they're bad. They fail because they're built backwards. They start with an idea the creator likes, a product built in isolation, marketing used as a rescue plan, but scale rarely comes from forcing attention onto something. It comes from solving something the market already cares about deeply. When that alignment exists, growth feels less like pushing and more like steering. So if you want to build a massive digital product, do not chase ideas. Build something that behaves like an engine, solves a real problem, produces clear results, and improves as more people use it. Do that and scale stops feeling mysterious. If you want more breakdowns on building and scaling products just like this, subscribe and I'll see you in the next video. If you want to build a digital product that can generate $1 million a year or more, the strategy is not what most people think. It's not about launching faster, it's not about having the best funnel, and it's definitely not about chasing trends or copying what's working for someone else. The truth is, the biggest digital product businesses aren't built on hacks. They're built on solving one extremely valuable problem for one specific audience better than anyone else, and then scaling that solution systematically. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact blueprint behind building a $1 million per year digital product in 2026, from choosing the right opportunity to validating demand, to building and launching and scaling it into a massive revenue machine. Let's get into it. Before we talk about tactics, you need to understand what actually creates a $1 million product. At that level, success usually comes from 3 things. 1, a painful, urgent problem. 2, a large and reachable market. And 3, a solution that produces clear, measurable results, because most people start with an idea they like. But $1 million products start with a problem the market already wants solved. The bigger the pain, the easier the sell. And the clearer the outcome, the easier the scale. So step 1 isn't building anything. Step 1 is choosing the right battlefield. A product capable of generating $1 million a year typically sits at the intersection of a high financial upside for the customer, frequent or ongoing need, clear transformation or measurable ROI, and think about categories like helping businesses make more money, helping people improve health or appearance, helping professionals gain skills that increase income, helping companies save time or reduce costs. These markets already spend aggressively. So your job isn't to convince people to spend, it's to position your solution as the most obvious choice. To validate an opportunity, simply ask, is this a problem costing people money, time, or status? Are people already paying for solutions? Can results be measured or demonstrated clearly? If the answer is yes, you likely have something scalable. Now, this is where most people waste months or years. They build first, then they try to sell. The smartest founders do the opposite. They validate demand before building anything complex. That can mean pre-selling the offer with a simple landing page, running ads to test messaging and interest, selling a manual or live version first. You can launch a beta group to a small group. If people won't buy a simple version, they won't buy a polished one. So validation reduces risk and it gives you real data about pricing, positioning, audience response, expected conversion rates. And once demand is proven, then you can build. A $1 million digital product is never just content. It's a system that delivers results consistently. That means the product should be outcome driven, not information heavy, structured so users can follow it step by step, designed to produce quick early wins, built with repeatable onboarding and support, because the easier it is for customers to succeed, the easier it is to scale. Because at high revenue levels, growth comes from referrals, testimonials, retention, reputation, not just ads. The product itself becomes the marketing engine. When it's time to launch, the goal isn't a flashy opening. The goal is proof. Early on, focus on getting real customer results fast, collecting testimonials and case studies, refining messaging based on feedback, understanding what actually drives conversions. Your first version doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to work. Once results exist, marketing becomes dramatically easier because you're no longer selling promises. You're showing outcomes. outcomes. Scaling to massive revenue comes down to multiplication, not reinvention. At this stage, focus on increasing customer acquisition channels, improving conversion rates step by step, raising pricing as proof and demand grow, expanding customer lifetime value through upgrades or continuity, building teams as systems that remove you as the bottleneck, because most $1 million products scale because they solve one problem extremely well, they serve a large enough market, they continuously optimize distribution. It's rarely about launching more products, it's about making one product dominant. Most digital products fail to grow because they solve small or vague problems, they target broad, unclear audiences, they focus on information instead of outcomes, they skip validation and hope marketing fixes everything, but marketing amplifies reality. If the product truly works and the market truly cares, scale becomes a process, not a gamble. Now, if you take anything from this video, let it be this. The biggest digital product businesses aren't built by chasing ideas. They're built by deeply understanding one valuable problem, creating the best solution for it, and staying consistent long enough for momentum to compound. If you want more breakdowns like this on building, scaling, and monetizing digital products, make sure you subscribe and follow along, and I'll see you in the next video. If you want to build a digital product that can generate over $100 million in revenue, stay with me because in this video, I'm breaking down the exact step-by-step framework you can use to do it yourself. My name is Terrence Chister, and over the past 8 years, I've generated more than $141 million in digital product sales. So everything I'm about to share comes directly from real world experience, not theory. So if you watch till the end of this video, you will have all the information you will need to mimic my success. With that being said, let's get into it. So as we're going through this, we're going to list these products out or different options. So first up is online courses. And at the end of the video, we're going to go ahead and rank all the things I put out 1 through 6. So you guys need to keep a couple things in mind. There's only 2 ways to sell your product. You go viral or you run ads. So I would say the number one thing with courses in terms of pros, the pros are that you can be lazy. It's easy fulfillment. So that's a bonus, I would say, for most people. The cons are going to be that it's a little bit harder to sell, I'd say. So we'll just say harder. Okay. There's low trust in the marketplace. And so I've been doing this for a long time. I've never really just only sold online courses. There's always been some coaching or consulting on the back end of it. The other thing is if you're not going to go viral, right? This is usually a good move if someone has a lot of followers. So if you're going to go viral, selling a course is great because it's easy fulfillment and the expectations are a lot lower. So if you were like Kim Kardashian or Grant Cardone or whoever, like the people are more willing to buy and the expectations are a little bit lower, but they have a large audience so they can get enough sales to actually make a dent in their business. For someone who's a beginner, they're going to have to go the ad route. And the problem would be is that if you're doing a course and you run an ad, so we'll just do this right here. We'll say this is an ad. You put money into the ad, you go to an opt-in page, you then go to a, let's say a sales page, and then you're hoping that they buy. Well, the issue will be is that typically you usually can't sell for more than $2,000 if you're going to send it to a sales page. And then you have to be pretty good at webinars and presenting. So I would say that it's a good thing to sell in terms of low effort and fulfillment. You don't really have to do anything. People aren't expecting a lot, but the con would be is that it's actually a lot harder to sell in my opinion, because you cannot sell it at a super high price point. And then if you're going to sell it at a lower price point, you have to be really on top of the fact that your presentation is really good and that your ads are working super effectively. So that's the first one, online courses. That's definitely one of the options you can have. Now, number 2 is going to be paid membership community. I'm not as big a fan of paid memberships. And again, the reason is that you have 2 options. We're always going to be going over this. You can go viral or run ads. So paid membership, again, is going to be great if you have a large audience. It's not so great if you don't have a big audience, because again, if we have to run ads and we put money into ads, you're usually going to run them straight to a sales page. And usually this is going to be like $97 a month, right? Something like that. The problem is usually with memberships, especially when it comes like information or digital products, something like that, people will come in, they'll usually stay for maybe 3 months. So at the end of 3 months, you have about what, $300, give or take, that you have from the 3 months. We'll put 3 right there. And it's going to cost usually more with that in ads to actually make a sale. So let's say with ads, you're going to spend $500 and you make a sale at $300. Well, people will go, well, why would anyone do that if they're going to lose money? The reality is that most people, when they're losing money here, they're going to get X amount of buyers. So these are little buyers down here, and they're going to upsell something that's cost a lot more. So 5,000 or 10,000, what have you. So again, you can run a membership community, but really the only way that I would actually run it is if I sold something higher priced on the back end that actually would make sense. So you can do membership communities, but again, unless you have a very large audience, you're going to have to go to ads, and the metrics don't really make a lot of sense unless you have a back end offer. So we'll come right here. put membership communities, and then we'll go on to the next one. All right, next up, we have digital templates or systems. So I actually like this one a lot because what you can do is there's a lot of business owners that actually have no clue how to use systems. So when I look in terms of the pros, I'd say it's easy to sell. There's high demand. So we'll just put an arrow right here. There's high demand. The cons is it takes more skill on your part. So it takes high levels of skill. But if you actually know how to do these things, so for example, you could set up someone's email automations, or you could set up their funnels, or you could set up their back-end systems to track. You could do any types of tracking for the sales team, stuff like that. It's actually a really easy thing to sell. I also like it because you can sell it at a high price point. So we always will talk about going viral or ads. I'm a bigger proponent of planning on running ads because 99.9% of you don't have a big following. So you're going to have to run ads. So the benefit here is if you do run ads, you put money into it, it goes to some type of opt-in page. We'll just put opt-in. Then it might go to a VSL where they book a call. Here's a call, here's a sell. The benefit is you could usually sell these types of services, you know, let's say $1,500 plus. You could get them on a phone and it's pretty easy to close because there's a really high demand. The only downside to this, again, is you actually have to have the skill, because if you don't know how to do those things, you obviously can't sell it. But actually, I like this one. It's one of my more favorite ones. Like, it's gonna be towards the higher in the ranking when we get to the end of the video, but that's gonna be number 3, digital templates or systems. You just kind of have to learn how the systems actually work. So number 4 is gonna be coaching or consulting. So just again, if anyone doesn't know, I've said this number quite a bit, but I've done 141 million from coaching and consulting. So this number right here. The reason I like it so much is it's the easiest thing to sell. It's literally the easiest. And the reason it's the easiest is because when you're charging a high price point and you're also giving one-to-one support and help and consulting, and they get one-to-one access, you can really crank up the price point. So some people will go, well, Tanner, if I pay you or I pay your team, why are you $50,000 or $70,000 more? Well, it's because you get me. It's literally the access, which is what can help drive the price point up. So again, we already talked about virality and ads. I'm not gonna keep going back into that, but if you put money into ads, and usually the typical funnels like opt-in, VSL, haul, I've sold this type of stuff anywhere from 1,500 to 98,000. Okay, usually for a year. I've sold higher than that, but that's like at least for a year. Actually, this number is like 200,000. Okay, those are private one-to-one clients. So when you're able to do that, you can spend quite a bit of money on ads, because on average, just so you understand how ads work, if you spend $1,000, usually you're going to get 100 leads. Okay, depending on the offer, we'll say 50 to 100 leads, but in this case, let's just say $10 leads. You get 10 calls and then you make one sale. Well, if you make a sale at $3,000, that's $2,000 of profit. You can rinse and repeat that process. The only downside people will usually complain about is like, yeah, but Tanner, I have to do a lot of one-to-one support, which is true until you get to about $20,000 a month. Once you're at $20,000 a month, you can take $5,000 if you're really overwhelmed, you give it to someone else and let them do the fulfillment. It's really easy. People will talk about building a team like it's really hard, but in reality, you can do about $100,000 a month with this type of offer. It's like 4 staff. You'd have like 1 or 2 coaches, and then you'd have 1 or 2 setters, and that's pretty much all you need. It's pretty easy. When I say setter, it's people who are going to set calls for you. So they're either messaging people on your social media, or they're messaging people who click on your ads, etc. Obviously, because of the amount of money I made doing this, 141 million, this is going to be my top option. But the reason that I like it is ultimately for beginners, or really anyone in general, you need the metrics to make sense for your business. A lot of people start businesses that the numbers just simply don't make sense and they don't go viral, and they spin the wheels because they're trying to make sales going viral or pushing organic content. But the reality is it's just not that effective, and they can't spend money on ads because the price point's too low or the skill level's too low. So the cool thing about this is when you're having one-on-one conversations with people, your skill level can actually be a lot lower, because that's how trust is built a lot easier. That's why people do phone calls, because someone buying $10,000 item on the phone is a hell of a lot easier than sending a website link. Otherwise, people would do it all the time. So that is going to be number 4. Now, number 5 is going to be some type of niche software or micro SaaS tool. Now, I usually like software quite a bit. In fact, that's kind of the direction I'm going as I'm kind of going into the next step of business. But I would say when you say niche software or like a micro SaaS tool, the hardest part is most people just don't know how to do it. So if we come over here and we have our pros and cons, high demand, like a lot of people will buy those types of things. But the con is, again, it takes high levels of skill. And so when I'm trying to give people ideas for businesses to start or the types of businesses to start, I usually am not banking on the fact that you have lots of money and lots of skill. Now, if you do, great. But like, I'll give you an example of something we've done with this is we have a white label, go high level agency, and it's called elite360.io. So that makes us 6 figures a month, because all the clients that come into our consulting or done for you offers, we will then sell this on the back end and we make 100% of it. We pay what, $500-600 a month for some type of agency fee for go high level, and then they will give us this. Now, there's other tools out there as well. I've seen some people that will sell tools for groups, or they'll sell tools for scraping data, stuff like that. The issue is like when it's only your tool, you sometimes can have issues if Facebook or Instagram changes the API and so on and so forth. But for go high level, they're working with those big companies, Facebook, Instagram, and they're integrated into the system. But again, this is great, but it's a lot of work, and I actually don't run it. I have people on my staff who run it. Again, again, because I have a pretty large staff, so that's the benefit. But it's definitely up there if you have a high level of skill set. It's just, again, it's probably is not the best if you're brand spanking new, but it's a lot easier to sell in the terms of if you can actually sell it, if you actually have the skill set, there's a lot of people who like it. And last but not least, we're gonna have kind of like PDFs or guides. To be honest, this is probably one of my least favorite ones, because again, when we talk about going viral or running ads, you guys kind of know what I've already said, is that you're probably not gonna go viral. So anything where you are selling something for a low price, I'm not usually a big fan, because you have to go viral. Instead, if you have to run ads, which 99.9% of you will have to do because you don't have a large following, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I mean, that's how I've made all my money. But you put the money into ads, and then if you're sending it to some type of sales page and it's like 17 bucks, the problem with that is ultimately to make a sale at $17, you might have to spend $54, something like that, right? So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to try to sell something at $17 and then lose money on it, because then you don't have anything on the back end. So what you guys are gonna kind of notice is when we're talking about memberships or PDFs, they're easy to sell in terms of the price point, but the problem is that you have to get so much volume, you usually won't make it back up. Online courses can be good. They're kind of in the middle ground, but again, you usually have to sell, I would say, like between $500 to $2,000, and then your presentations have to be pretty good. We talked about the digital templates. Those work, or systems, like those will work, but you have to understand the system. Same with software. So if I was going from best to worst in terms of like what I would start with, we'll start with the worst first. The number one thing that I'm probably not the biggest fan of, I would probably say, are membership sites, because it takes a little bit more knowledge and acumen, but also at the same time, you can't sell for a really high price point. Okay, so I'm usually not the biggest fan of memberships because it's a low price point. You don't have something on the back end you can sell that's a higher price, and it takes a lot of technical setup. Right after that, to be frank though, I'll probably put PDFs or guides. And again, the reason is that the price point is too low. So if you don't go viral, it's just gonna go nowhere. Okay, it's easy to sell, but it's not my favorite in terms of that. Okay, right after that, I'd probably say the next one is gonna be software. Again, I like software, but if you don't have the skill set, it's just not my favorite. Right after that, we're gonna actually go with online courses. I'm not against online courses. I actually think that's like the middle ground for most of this. It's a decent price point, and it's also easy fulfillment. But again, you have to be really good at presentation. So again, if I'm talking to a beginner, I'm trying to show you maybe what's the hardest to the easiest in terms of like what will make you more successful. So we have online courses. Then right after that, I would probably do digital templates and systems. This is, again, really easy to sell, but I just don't like it for a beginner. In fact, I'd probably switch these two. So we'll switch these two right here, because I still think online courses are easier for most of you to start. And then finally, put coaching and consulting, which I think is the best. And the reason there is it makes it easier to sell. It makes it easier to market when you tell people you're going to give them one-on-one support. And then eventually, once you get to around $20,000 a month, you can go ahead and hire that out. So if we were going to rank these in order, right? We got 6 right here with memberships. PDFs and guides are number 5. Software is going to have to be number 4. We're going to go right here for digital templates at number 3. Online courses would be number 2. And then coaching and consulting is going to have to finish at number 1, because that is where I've made all my money and it's completely changed my life. So the best thing you can do after watching this video is just pick one of these and start there. Now, I try to give you the pros and the cons. Most of the ones that are ranked worse, the reason they're ranked worse is that because the price point is so low, it makes it almost impossible for ads to work. And 99.9% of you are going to have to run ads. The ones towards the top, you can usually charge a higher price point. Therefore, your chance of success goes up, because if you spend money on ads and you make a mistake or something doesn't go perfectly, you can still recoup your investment. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like videos and you want more just like these, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. If you want to build a digital product that can generate over $141 million in revenue, stay with me, because in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the exact step-by-step framework you can use to do it yourself. My name is Tanner Chisler, and over the past 8 years, I've generated more than $141 million in digital product sales, and I've won just about every single award you can think of, especially from ClickFunnels. So everything I'm about to share comes directly from real-world experience. It's not theory. With that being said, let's get into it. First and foremost, I want to give a little bit of context of my background. So I started 12 to 22, I just wanted to play in the NFL, okay? And that was my dream. Now, at 22, I probably wasn't good enough. I got to play a little Division I level. I had a lot of injuries. That's when I started my business journey. And for the first, let's say, 3-ish years, I was stuck selling a $47 program called the Rapid Muscle System. It's not that selling fitness is bad. It's that the price point didn't make sense, because in business, you really only have 2 ways to scale. You either go viral, okay, or you have to run ads. Well, here's the problem. I wasn't going to go viral. Most of us aren't. 99.9% of us won't go viral. And then number 2 is the ads I couldn't make work, because usually it would cost me $100 to make a $47 sale. So I'm losing money. I got stuck for about 3 years thinking, hey, I'm going to be super famous. I'm going to be an influencer. I'm going to have a, link in my bio and it's going to work, but it just didn't. Eventually I was introduced to high ticket sales. I got really desperate. I was about to go back to school. And at 25, I got introduced to high ticket. And so they said, hey, take your same fitness program up here and start selling it at $1,500 plus. I was like, okay, like, are you serious? Like, yeah. And I had done door-to-door sales. I've been a server. I played Division I football. So, I had a little bit of grit and determination. And in the first week, I remember I made $10,000. I was like, oh, okay. I called my parents. I said, hey, let me move home. I figured this business thing out. Let me pay you guys $1,000 a month of rent. Let me save the $2,000 I can put back into the business. They're like, okay, like that's fine. As long as you're not doing drugs and, pushing illegal substances, like we'll let you back in. So I went home and I grew the business from $10,000 to about $50,000 a month. Just DMing, okay? And this really was probably the worst part of the business. But basically all I did to do that is I would just DM people all day. So I would do about 100 DMs a day, okay? I'd usually get about 30 replies. The reply rate is lower now, but I'm just telling you what it was back then. Now it's probably like 15, but I get 30 replies. I would book usually like 20% into sales calls, so I get 6 calls. And because I was really good at sales, I would usually close 3 deals, okay? And so 3 deals would be about, what, $4,500? And I would do about enough to do $50,000 a month, but I was working 16 hours a day. I mean, I was just literally messaging. I started getting arthritis in my thumbs, believe it or not. You guys would actually laugh. And I knew at $50,000, like, okay, I got to start figuring out this paid ad system or I'm going to get stuck. Around $50,000, I started figuring out this paid acquisition system. I hired 5 coaches in a span, I want to say about 5 months, about $10,000 a piece. And I was getting really frustrated because things were not working. And the reason things were not working is the way I was trying to sell my product through ads is I was doing the traditional ad, opt-in, VSL, book a call. Okay. And so the benefit is if this works, it's great. But if it doesn't work, it sucks because the only thing you have to really follow up with is emails, which get about 30% open rates. And then if they don't book a call, I couldn't really do anything. So I got really frustrated. And I remember one day the coach I had at the time, I was getting really pissed off. I was like, dude, like I paid you 10 grand. I've paid 4 other people. Nothing you guys are telling me is working. Like I was basically spending, let's say 5 grand on ads and I make 5 grand back. Plus I was paying these coaches 10K a piece. So I was getting really frustrated. What happened is at that time, this was probably back in 2018, 2019, ManyChat came out, which is basically a DM automation. So DM ads are kind of new. They're like 6-ish years old, 6 or 7 years old. But back then they were brand new. And so what I did is I was running my ads like this: ad, DM, opt-in, VSL, call. And so what I started doing is I had all these leads sitting there and I had a call with that coach and he basically said, hey, like either do the work or I'm going to refund you and kick you out of the program. And because I had a lot of pride and ego, I was like, F you, basically in a nice way. I said, I was thinking F you, I'm going to prove this guy wrong. So I started messaging all these leads, all of them. And I remember that turned into $18,000. I was like, oh, like I figured this thing out. Right. So then I was able to scale from $50,000 to about $150,000 a month. And the goal was to continue to grow the business and scale it. But at that point, because I'd done so well, I got an award from ClickFunnels. So I'll, draw my little ClickFunnels award over here and they have the little disc, whatever. And it's for doing $1 million a year. And at the time, I remember I was getting a lot of accolades because people were like, hey, this is the guy who built $1 million fitness business and he doesn't teach business coaching. So a lot of people at the time were really high on me and they're like, hey, who is this guy? I want to learn from him what he does. And at the time I was like, I don't really want to do this, but you got to keep in mind, I was 27 years old. So after I had, 10 or 12 people offer me $10,000 a piece to coach them, I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. So I got to $1 million doing the fitness offer. And then that's where I finally transitioned. Okay, so this is fitness right here. And then that's where I finally transitioned into the business consulting, okay? Once I switched to that, at first I was only helping trainers. And that very next year, I did over $10 million in sales. So essentially what I was doing is I ran the same exact strategy. I would do ad, DM, opt-in page, VSL, call. Okay. The only difference now is the price point, instead of like, I was doing $3,200 for 4 months for fitness. So do $3,200 for. Now for business consulting, I could basically do $10,000 for 4 months. So I was able to 3 times the price point. So I could push the ads a lot harder. So that next year I did $10 million in the business. It was absolutely crazy. I hired, I want to say like 20 or 30 staff and we were scaling like absolutely crazy. And then the next year after that is I went into full on business consulting. So I went into the general market. Okay. So the next year we did 15, then we did 25, then we did 25, and then we went all the way to 141 million over the past 8 years. Now, I know some people go like, well, that's not one digital product. It's like, guys, besides the first $1 million where I did the fitness business, the rest of my money has come from strictly consulting. The only difference between this and this was at first I only helped trainers. Now I help everyone outside of that as well. So I still have a ton of like personal trainers and physical therapists and like fitness professionals, but I still help people outside of that. The main thing that made the biggest difference was the follow-up. There's a million people who do fitness and do all kinds of stuff like that. The offer is really not that unique. In fact, if you have read $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi, he basically has determined outcome, time perceived likelihood of achievement, times time, okay, times effort. So if you look at the offers I had, fitness is like good outcome, lose weight, low chance will succeed, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. So fitness is 1 out of 4, not really good. Business consulting, same thing. Good outcome, make money, low chance you'll succeed, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. So it's 1 out of 4. So I really didn't have that unique of an offer, but what was unique is the average person, even to this day, does ad, opt-in, VSL, call, and then like if it doesn't work, they're basically have a couple emails and then that's it. Their follow-up process is really weak. Now, if you Google how many times it takes a lead to actually become a sale, you'll see that it usually takes about 7 times on average, okay? So when someone comes through my system, I want you to see what it looks like. So usually be add to a DM, okay? Inside the DM, we'll have a link to an opt-in page, okay? Then we'll have a VSL and then we'll have a call. Okay, so look, if they come through and they go through the DM, but they don't click on that, we'll message them. Okay, so we'll message them inside the DM and we'll push to a call over here. If they do opt in and they go to the VSL, they can book a call here. Then on top of that, we'll have emails, texts, retargeting. So you'll see retargeting ads. A lot of people say, Taryn, I see your ads all the time after I start following you on Instagram. That's on purpose. We'll have groups. So like we'll have a screw group, we'll have events, we'll have voicemails. And so what happens is the leads that come through my system get hit way more often than the competition. And so even though my offer is not that unique, because I'm doing so much one-to-one reach outs on, we do have calls as well. Because we're doing so much one-to-one reach outs with DMs, calls, texts, all those things, the more touch points you can do that's one-to-one, the better chance you're going to have of converting the sale, because you got to remember, it's about being unique, right? It's about doing things that other people aren't doing. So this essentially was how I was able to scale to, 141 million. And then really, I spent a ton of money on ads. So as you are getting results, it's just spending more. So I spent about $40 million and I made in return about 141 million. Yes, the return is not as high as usual. Like usually you would want like a 4x return on ads, but you guys got to keep in mind when you're spending that massive amount, your ROI can go down at times. But like, would you spend 40 million to make 141? I'm assuming you would. It's not as good an ROI, but it's because as you go broader, the lead quality goes down a bit because you have to reach further and further and further to get there. So this is exactly how I scaled to $141 million in sales. Hopefully this gives you guys kind of 2 insights. Number 1 is that you just need to have something in the health, wealth, or relationship niche. It doesn't even have to be that unique. What you need to make sure you focus on is once it's in one of those niches is that you just have a great follow-up process. It doesn't really matter about how good the funnels are. It doesn't really matter like how good your VSL is. It's more about the follow-up process. And to be frank, I've won every award you can win from ClickFunnels. I have every single award past the $100 million award, which is as high as it gets. And the reason I've gotten those awards is not because the funnel is so good. It's because my follow-up process is absolutely amazing. And by doing that, that's made a huge difference. So that's how I've done $141 million in sales. If you guys like these types of videos where I just give you straight advice, no fluff, no BS, like just giving you the straight facts, make sure to subscribe because I do new videos like this each and every week. And I'll see you guys in the next video. There are so many ways to make $100,000 a month with digital products in 2026. So in this free course, I'm gonna break down the most effective digital product business models, what each one is, who it's for, how to set it up, how to sell it, and then how to scale it to at least $100,000 a month and beyond. Now I've sold digital products for over 8 years, and over the past 8 years, I've done $141 million in sales. So this isn't just theory. I've actually done the things I'm about to teach you at a very high level. So I'm gonna give you a complete breakdown of low ticket PDFs and how to use them effectively. Then I'll talk about the software and AI products. Then we'll discuss live virtual events and challenges. I'm running one right now, by the way, so you can actually join that by clicking down below. I'll explain online courses and who they might be best for. And then I'll give an overview of online coaching and consulting, which will probably be the best option if you're just starting out. And then by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which model you should start with, what to build first, and how to stack these together into a real business that can scale to $100,000 a month
and beyond. So let's start by talking about low ticket PDFs, which are always one of the first things people want to start with. Everyone thinks, oh yeah, it's super easy to make and I can sell it for $5. It's gonna be really easy so people get to pay $5. Then they make this nice looking PDF and spend all this time and energy and then nobody buys it. I made this exact same mistake in my first ever fitness business. I was selling a program for $47 and I was only able to make around $2,000 in 3 years. What people don't get is that unless you have an audience already waiting to buy your stuff, money to put into advertising or planning to go viral, selling at a low price will not help you get to $100,000 a month. But low ticket PDFs can still be extremely useful for lead gen, monetizing your current audience, or adding value to an existing package. So I'll break down a super easy way to set up a digital PDF that you can sell, use as lead gen, or use as an add-on. Now, before we get started making any of these digital products, I'll just give a quick overview of how to think about the offers you'll be selling. So first up is gonna be that PDF. Now, I don't think a PDF should really be sold as a product. I really think you should be using it as lead gen. So when I say that, you guys got a couple ways to do lead gen. So first we have organic, okay? And organic is just gonna be your social posts, referrals, talking to people, etc. Okay. And then you have paid ads, right? Now, if you're a beginner, you're probably not going to start with paid ads, but I want to walk through what you can do. So if you're doing this organically, one of the best things I think you can do is what they call a two-step post. So on social media, you've probably seen these all the time. I know you have. It's where people say, hey, if you want, my free training for XYZ, comment down below. Or, hey, if you want this free training, comment fit down below. And then when they comment, the person will either use an automation, so they can use ManyChat or Elite360.io, which is what I use, and it will fire that PDF or that gimme or freebie, whatever you want to call it, to that customer, okay, or to that client. So they'll comment the word, it fires an automation, and then they'll send over the PDF or the training. So it's really easy to set that up. That's usually the most common way because you're not running ads. You don't have them click on anything. They're usually going to send it via a comment, or maybe you send a DM, but it's going to usually be activated from a comment. Now with paid ads, usually what will happen is from the paid ad, you have an opt-in page. And then in return for them giving your email and phone number, you then will shoot them over the PDF via email. Now, in terms of making this PDF, it's actually really not that complex. People try to make it that way. The first thing you would do is figure out what you want the PDF to be about. So if you were a fitness coach, you might do protein recipes, or you might do the best way to lift or the best way to lose fat, etc. If you're a business coach, maybe you do something around ads or lead generation or sales. Like it's got to be something around what they care about most. So it could be a sales script breakdown, or it could be your favorite way of lead generation, or how to do DM ads, or whatever, right? Like whatever you think your audience is really going to want. Now, in terms of actually making the PDF, you got two ways you could really do it. So number one is you're gonna have Canva, okay? So one of the easiest things to do is you can literally just take what you want on the PDF, put it on a Google Note sheet, and then send it over to an editor, or you could go on Upwork or Fiverr, really simple to do this, a ton of people on there, and then they'll actually create the PDF. You can send them pictures, you can send them like an example. And usually what I do is I send, hey, here's my information. Make me a PDF similar to this one. And I give them a example PDF. You can't just tell people like, hey, make me a nice PDF, because that's different to everyone. So giving them an example. Or number two is you can actually do ChatGPT. So what's cool now is you could take whatever you want in that PDF, tell ChatGPT, hey, make me this PDF that's this many pages. It probably will just make it for you at this point. You don't even have to do it. Now, back in the day, years ago, what I would do to actually get PDFs is I would write the PDF down, and then I'd actually have to make it myself in something similar to Canva. They had something different back then. I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't Canva. And then I'd actually have to upload it to AWS. So for those of you who don't know what AWS is Amazon Website Services. I think that stands for website. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But basically, you would have to upload it into Amazon's database. This is where a lot of companies, tech companies, actually will hold together data. And this is what allows so many tech products to be built and different things like that. So in short, when you're making this PDF, just make it about the most beneficial thing you can possibly think about. And then you can either create it yourself in Canva or pay a graphic designer. It's really simple. They actually have other stuff now like Soro and some other stuff you can actually use instead of Canva. ChatGPT would probably be this next go-to. Just it's really easy. You got to have the paid version, but it could just build it out for you. Or you can make it manually like in Canva, but then you have to upload it to AWS. Okay, long story short is you just want it to be a link. It has to be clickable. So when someone gets your PDF, it's downloadable. uploadable. You have to usually upload that to some type of system, like data system, which is AWS, or a ChatGPT can just kind of create it from scratch. But when it gives you that download link, you have to upload it somewhere, right? Because you can't just put a link to something. It has to kind of have like a database or home base that you're going to do it from. So once you have this PDF, it's really simple. I would use it more as a two-step post or a lead gen for paid ads. I want to just sell it for $5 because it's not going to move the needle. You'd have to sell 100, right, to make $500, and it's not going to move the needle at all in your life. And then on top of that, unless you have a huge organic following, it's not going to be a great thing to do. So I would not personally do anything outside of using it for organic or paid ads as a lead gen. And then on top of that, when they opt in on this opt-in page for ads, usually the next page, you send them the PDF, but then the next page is going to be a VSL with a button to book a call, right? So there's going to be a button here. And so it's like, hey, opt in, you get the PDF. Oh, on top of that, if you want to book a call now, because you're trying to push them to actually buy something that's more expensive, higher price. We're not trying to sell something super low. So that's going to be number one, is an actual PDF. So that's how you can set up a PDF that you can sell anywhere from just a few minutes to no longer than 48 hours. It can be really fast. Now, like I said, if you're just starting out, this might not be the best option, but if you've got an audience already waiting to buy from you or a bunch of money to put into paid marketing, you could get started with this one right now. So the pros is it's super easy to set up, super scalable. The cons is it's low margins. It can be difficult to start with no audience or funds. Now, the next digital product model I'm going to talk about is software and AI products. So one of the things I'm actually doing right now, there's a lot of things out there. I want to walk you through what I'm doing because I think that makes the best case study. Something I did is first, when you're making software, understand this is not usually for beginners. This is a great model. Most billionaires, if you guys look at the top three things they do tech, private equity, so I'll just call it PE, or they do hedge funds. Okay, so if you go look at the Forbes list of the top billionaires in the world, almost all of them are in one of these three things. Okay, so these are the big three. So tech's great. The pro is that the leverage is insane. You don't need a lot of staff to get a lot of leverage, but if the tech isn't good, you're kind of dead in the water. So what I did and what kind of became pretty easy is instead of starting tech from scratch, you look for something that your clients already need. So one of the biggest complaints that I get is messaging and DMing leads to try to get them to book a call. So what I looked at is I said, okay, where are most of my clients coming from? So I would say about 50% of my clients to this day are still going to be trainers, right? So I get 50% of kind of regular business owners. I get 50% trainers. Why do I get 50% trainers? Because I think I started in the fitness industry, so I still get a lot of trainers. And then I said, okay, what's the biggest pain point they have? Well, the biggest pain point is DMs to calls. People complain about it. They're like, oh my gosh, it takes so much time. I have to look and find these setters. They're not good sometimes. Then I have to manage them, all these things. So I said, okay, what if I could take this and I could create tech that they couldn't cancel? Okay, so just so you guys know, the average setter costs about $2,000 a month, all right? And that's part-time. Full-time is gonna be closer to, let's say, 4K plus, all right? So that's a typical setter. And then on top of that, they might not be that good. They have to take breaks. They gotta sleep. You gotta manage them, all those things. So I said, okay, what if I could replace that with AI and I could make it $1,500 a month and it was better than all of their staff? Well, obviously, if I could do that, people would buy it. The hardest part is getting it to do that because I say, hey, I'll build this out for you. $1,500 a month, money back guarantee if you don't like it. And then it's rinse and repeat, and then we'll continue to use it forever. So I've actually been building this for the last 2 years, I'd say. The downside is it's a lot of build out and there's a lot of stuff you don't know. So for example, some of the cons is software, right? And just building it. I don't really know how software needs to be built. I know what it needs to do, but I don't actually understand all the coding. So building that out, having people you can trust, right? Because coders can kind of tell you whatever they want. Because if you don't understand coding, you can't really speak their language. It takes a lot of time. And then on top of that, it takes a lot of, I will call it fixes. So meaning if you do a beta test meaning, hey, we just finished the software, let's go ahead and test it out. The problem is if the feedback from the beta tester is like, hey, this needs to be better, this isn't good, I don't like the overview, I don't like the display, this is really slow, you have to fix it. The pro is once it's done, it's very cheap to run, right? So all you're basically paying for is the software. If I sell this for $1,500 a month, it probably costs me per client, like, I don't know, like $30 a month of actual like data usage versus like you're making $1,500. So the margins are absolutely astronomical. On top of that, at least in my experience, I use one of the softwares I use is Hyros. Okay, so that's actually Alex Becker's software. He charges me, I want to say $1,500, $2,000 a month, something like that. And we actually don't really talk to his team for the last, I want to say 2-3 years, because once the software software is up and running and you've asked all the questions, then the workload to actually handle those customers goes way down. So that would be one of the benefits of software. The other con, I guess, that I left out would just be it's not really beginner friendly because I'm about $250,000 in the hole now. So usually when I look at software, I think it should be coming from your first business. You move the funds into this, and then the software itself helps your current customer base do something that's super valuable. So the pros is it's really scalable and there's high upside. The cons is it's more complicated and it's very expensive to set up. So if you have the skills or the financial means to create software that can change an industry, that has to be one of the highest upsides of all digital products, but it's usually not for beginners, okay? This is gonna be something that's a little bit more for experts. Now, next up is virtual live events. So webinars and challenges are great if you don't wanna sit around building something for 6 months in silence, and instead you want sales to improve fast. So one of the favorite things I'm doing right now, back in the day, so like when I say back in the day, like I sound super old, but let's say back in 2018, most people would just do an ad and then they'd run it to some type of opt-in page, and then they would do a auto webinar. Okay, auto webinar just means it's already been pre-recorded. They don't have to show up. And, people would try to make it look like it was real, but it wasn't. Like, it was an auto webinar. And that would actually work like gangbusters back, I don't want to say like 7 years ago. This was a typical funnel: ad, opt-in, webinar, call. Okay. Then I came along. I feel like I did. Maybe someone else did, but I came along and said, hey, instead of running it to an opt-in page, let's do a DM. Let's do a opt-in. Let's do the webinar. I'll just put auto here and then call. And so the benefit was, hey, if they're from the webinar and they book a call, great. But if they don't, I can also push them through via DM. And that actually worked for, I would say, really well for 2 years. People still run DM ads. I still do them, but they were way more effective back then because they were new. Now, what I actually think is the most effective is trust is super low in the industry, right? So we'll just put a down arrow, trust. And so what I would actually have you do at this point is run it to a challenge. Okay. So you add, opt in, and then you might do a 3 or 5 day challenge. I like 3 day. I'll explain why in a second. You can even test 1 day, and then you try to get them to book a call. So the benefit of a challenge is you're getting to build a lot of trust, and trust is really low in the industry right now. So the fewer days, the better, in my opinion, because each day you run a challenge, you get drop off. So if the first day you have, 30 people show up, next day might be 25, next day might be 20, next day might be 15, last day's 10. So you're slowly going down because people get busy, or maybe they're just like, hey, like I don't need anything else. So I would recommend a 3 day or a 1 day challenge. Now I've done a 5 day for an hour. So here's some different examples. I did 5 day for 1 hour. I did a 3 day for 2 hours. So each day was about 2 hours. If I'm going to do a 1 day, that's the next thing I'm going to test. That would probably be like 6 hours. And so the benefit is like you get it all done in one go. The downside is it just takes a lot more time and more energy on that single day. But the benefit could be is, hey, if you get 30 people to show up on the first day, all 30 people are going to see the pitch. They're going to see everything in between. And then you really see like who actually wants to buy. The downside is like the time and energy and effort investment, because if you do these and it doesn't work, or you don't get as many book calls as you like, that's not going to be as fun. So usually what you want to do is, in a perfect world, let's say, we'll just make this easy. Let's say you get 100 leads. You'd want about a 30% show rate. So 30% show. And then out of those 30%, 10% would book a call minimum, right? So usually that would be at least 3 book a call. And then obviously you close at least 1, because we want to close at least 30%. So, if you took this to 5X, the goal would be, hey, we have 15 calls, and then you could close, 3 to 4 deals. And then depending on how much you're paying for the leads, it's not going to be quite that expensive, okay? The only downside I've seen is if you don't get a good show rate, right? So the biggest issue I've had when I do this is sometimes I just won't get a good show rate. Maybe it's Christmas, it's New Year's, it's Thanksgiving. So the time of the year is not great. So I would never run this only full time, but I would use it as a part of your process that you could use, because if it's run correctly, it's really great as kind of extra to your main method. So let's say you have a typical, VSL funnel. So this is like, hey, I run this full time. You do VSL to a call. And then in addition, you do a challenge. I think that's the best way to do it. I don't think you should only do a challenge. I think it should be part of your process, but I don't think it should be the only thing you do in your process. So I really like this now because the trust in the industry is super, super, super low, but I don't think it should be the only thing you do. But challenges definitely work, and I definitely would add it to your arsenal if you can have the proper setup. One of the downsides is the tech setup. So it's a little bit harder to set up, but once you do set it up, you can rinse and repeat it for forever. So the pros is it's high conversions and it's a perfect perfect bridge to other offers. The cons is the time commitment. It's a little bit harder to scale because you can't do it 24/7. And then there's some delivery risks. So if you need money fast, a live event or challenge might be a good option for you if you can get the leads and convert them efficiently. Now, building online courses and communities are great if you have a skill or framework that works and you can teach it clearly. You want something scalable that isn't tied to your time, like one-to-one. You want recurring revenue, so like a community, instead of chasing new sales nonstop. And you want to turn your knowledge into an actual asset you can sell forever. So I've done a couple communities. Usually what I've done in the past is if I'm running ads or I'm getting sales, I'll run just your typical VSL, right? So we've already seen this a couple times today. I'm running your typical VSL, and then after they buy, part of what they get is they get, a course, curriculum, etc. And one of the things they get is a paid community, but they've already paid me, $5, $10, $15,000 plus dollars. The downside of this, or the upside of that, is like the community is just auxiliary, right? It's just extra. What some people want to do is they want to make a community that is where they actually make all their money. So instead, they might do an ad, they have an opt-in page, they push it to a sales page, and then they try to push them to a community. Now, I've tested this out. I'm not the hugest fan because one thing is what we were doing is we were selling it for $14.97 for a year. So number one is you're not making quite as much money. You're making what? If I'm selling for $10K, I'm making what? 8 times less. And then number two is the value is not as high, because think of it, when you're selling group coaching, the value cannot be nearly as high as one-to-one. And a lot of people go, well, I don't want to do one-to-one because that's going to take my time. But once you get to $20,000 a month, you can hire a staff member for $5,000 and they can take over all the fulfillment, and then you just give them 10% of the upside. So if they get a re-sign or they get someone to upgrade, they get 10%. That is, in my opinion, the best way to use a community model would be as part of your high ticket program after you've sold something, and then they get it as part of that package. I don't think this is the best model. A lot of people will try to say that, but you need a lot more volume. And again, just going back to what we said before, if you don't have a big viral organic audience where tons and tons of views come in, you're going to have to run ads. If you run ads, the problem is if you're selling something for $14.97 a year, or maybe even you're the person who does $97 a month, you have to sell it for like $50 to actually make any profit. And usually the rule of thumb with ads with low ticket, so low ticket, let's just say it's under $100, you're going to spend $200 up front to make 97. The problem with that is you've just lost a negative 100 up front, okay? And then you have to upsell to something else, we'll just say something else like this, to actually make money. So I'm not a huge fan of this for beginners, because trying to sell something for a low price is actually harder than a high price, because when I sell something for a lot, I can have a phone call. When I sell something for a little, I can just push them to a sales page. Like I can't talk to someone for an hour to sell something for $97. I mean, you could, but you'll make literally no money. So once you make that sell, you have to sell something else. And that is actually a lot harder to do. It takes a lot more expertise and experience, because once you have them buy this thing here, you then have to push through emails, you have to push through text, you have to push through, dialing, like you'll have a dialer on the team. You have to do retargeting ads, all these extra things that as a beginner, you probably don't even know how to do. You might be like, I can only do one of those things, or I don't know how to do any of these things. So my personal opinion is if you're going to do the community, just make it part of your high ticket sell of whatever it is you're selling for a higher price, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 plus. Don't sell it for a low ticket, because then you have to sell something else on the back end. So even the big companies who do this, if they're selling something for $97, they're selling it because they know they're going to get a percentage to buy something else on the back end. But that takes a lot of expertise and work that a lot of people probably aren't aware of. Something else I forgot to mention is actually how to produce them, how to sell them. So back in the day, what I used was Kajabi. Okay. You can still use Kajabi now, but basically I would shoot the videos, I'd shoot the content, and then Kajabi was kind of a course builder, so to speak, where you go in and it'd have lines and you put video 1, video 2, video 3, you'd put the words, anything like that. What I use now is Elite 360. So elite360.io. So like I'll have my curriculum in there, but also something else you can do is School. Okay. Now the biggest reason I use School is the DM feature. I don't think you need School just for courses. Like I don't actually think it's like the best thing for that necessarily, but I do like it. So we actually will hold our stuff at elite360.io. You can actually go get a 7-day free trial if you guys want to check that out. And then number 2 is we'll put it inside School. So the cool part is you don't have to be really technically savvy to host these types of courses or products, because there's companies that have already kind of built this out for you. So you just have to plug and play. Super, super easy. But my suggestion is use one of those two. This is the one I predominantly use. And then we also use this, but this is more for our private clients, so to speak, or this is for, I should say, our private clients. This is for our free clients or like free leads. And we kind of bring them in and give them a little bit of access. This is more for our private clients once they get inside our CRM, because we just want to keep everything in one place. Neither one is like quote unquote superior. I personally use this more, but it's really the same thing. A car is a car, gets you from point A to B. It's going to be just fine. So the pros is you produce it once and then you can sell it forever. Once it's done, it is done. The cons is it's harder to sell cold. It can take a while to create. And then there's production and marketing costs. So again, online courses and communities have a huge potential upside, but there's still a few barriers to entry if you're just getting started. So now I'm going to break down the simplest and easiest option. And honestly, this will probably work the best for most of you because you need nothing to get started. You just need time. You need a cell phone. That's it. There's no funnel. There's no website, no course. There's no fancy brand. If you have a skill that helps someone get a result and you can start getting paid $1,500 plus or more consistently, it's way faster than any other model on this list because coaching and consulting is just this. You solve a problem for a specific person, and then you charge for the shortcuts. You only have to be one step ahead of where your first customer is to get started. Because when I switched my business model from selling a $47 product that was fitness to selling a $1,500 program, I went from making $2,000 over 3 years to over $10,000 in a single week, and then $141 million over the next 8 years. So this is the business model that changed everything for me and has allowed me to explore others. So the way this business model works is actually super, super simple. The first thing we need to do is we need to price it accordingly. So people ask me all the time, they're like, Tanner, why don't you want to sell something for a low price? So there's only two ways to sell something for a low price. So here's our low priced item, okay? So you really only have two ways to sell anything. You can post about it organically, okay? Or you can run ads. Okay, so the issue with posting this organically is the amount of reach you would need to sell $47 items to make enough money to make profit. You have to be super famous. So Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, Donald Trump, like I'm talking super famous, LeBron James, like most of us just don't have that many viewers. So posting this, and let's say you make 10 sales a month. Well, that's only $500 basically. It's just not enough. So then you have to run ads. The problem when you run ads to this is usually when you run ads to a $47 item, it's going to cost you double. So it's going to cost at least $100 to make one $47 sale. Well, if we do the math, you guys are pretty smart, that's negative $53 and you're going negative. So you don't usually have the runway because the way that companies actually do this is they'll make a sell. Let's say they lose $53 up front, but then they upsell it to something that's a lot more expensive. That's not really a great model for beginners. Again, I think low ticket products is for very advanced individuals in business. So I don't think this model works because most people do not have the budget to run ads nor the experience to actually upsell them to higher price things. So they have to post about it, but the posts just never gain traction. So they just kind of go in circles for years. This is the issue I see with the show Shark Tank. They go on there, they have a product, it doesn't go viral. They're hoping it goes viral. So because it doesn't, then they run out of money and then they try to take money from the sharks. The sharks come in and take a crazy good deal. And if it doesn't work out, they don't care. If it does work out, they make crazy returns. Like it's just not a great business model. Okay. So instead, what I would recommend you do is you sell something that's at least $1,500 and you can do 3 or 4 months. Now, why $1,500? Well, let's just do the math on this. If I sell a fitness program for $47 and then I'm the competitor, I sell for $1,500. Well, I can run a lot more ads to make that work because we have the same issue with posting, right? The posting is not going to work. Okay. So we already established that won't work. That's not an option. So then the only other option left is ads. Well, the benefit when you charge that much is I could run an ad. Okay. I could spend, let's say $500 on an ad. I do an opt-in page, right? Kind of your typical VSL funnel or whatever you want to do. You could do DMs, etc. And so if I make this sell for $1,500, I still make $1,000 of profit. So that's the benefit, right? I can spend a lot more money to make a sale because I make a lot more money. And so the numbers, what they might look like on something like this is if I spend $1,000, or excuse me, we'll do 500 because that's what I used. Okay. Usually you'll get, let's say $10 leads. So you get 50 leads. Okay. 10% of those leads book a call, 5 calls. And then let's say, close 30%. Let's just say you close 2. Well, if you close 2 and you spent $500 and you're charging $1,500, you just spent $500, but you made $3,000. Okay. So we're now at a total of $2,500 of profit. So you can rinse and repeat that process. This is how I made all my money. This is how I scaled to $141 million. I basically spent about $40 billion over the last 8 years on ads, and I made $141 million in return. I know it's more complex than that, obviously, but the point is the metrics have to make sense. A lot of people, when they're starting these coaching businesses or consulting, like they're trying to sell stuff for cheap because they think that the cheaper it is, the easier it is for people to buy. That's actually not true. Maybe you get more people to buy, like 50, but the problem is it's not enough money. Instead, I'd rather get 3 people to buy something at 1,500 or more versus 50 at 47. It's going to move the needle a lot faster. So this is actually the model I've used to generate $141 million in sales. And the cool part is once you get something that works, you just rinse and repeat that process. So if I took that same funnel and I put 40 million, right? We'll just do this. And I pushed it through there. Well, as long as you're making money and it's working, right? Which it has for me, it's really easy to get wealthy. And then people go, well, like, what else do you have to do? Well, obviously you have to have like emails, right? You have to have texts. You have to have sales reps, right? So we'll just put sales here. You have to have staff. So yeah, you do have to start building a team and things of that nature. But the cool part is you get the leverage because the people on your team are doing the work and not you. So I basically was able over 8 years to spend 40 million and do 141. Now, the ROI is not going to be as high when you're spending that much money because Facebook has to go super broad, right? So what is that? That's about 3.5x versus like usually you get a typical 4. But at the end of the day, would any of you not make the trade for 40 million for 141? Of course you would. And that's kind of exactly what I did to make so much money in my consulting business. So the pros is this is the fastest path to real money. It's actually the easiest and there's no startup costs. And then the cons is it's time bound and it's harder to scale. But if you're able to sell a high ticket service and deliver for just a few clients, you will quickly have the money you need to scale your business by growing a team to help you fulfill, just like I was showing you. And then you can reinvest back in ads to get more customers. All right, guys, so that's everything I want to cover this video. If you actually watch the entire thing, you now have a clear picture of what digital products look like in 2026, and more importantly, which one makes sense for you based on where you're at. So let me recap the pros and the cons of each one real quick, and then I'll rank them from easiest to hardest to start. So first up is we have low ticket PDFs. The pros is easiest to create, it's fastest to launch, it's super scalable, great for lead gen or audience monetization, but the cons is it's low margins, it's hard to sell from zero without attention or money. It's not a great path to $100,000 a month by itself. Next up, we have software and AI products. Now, the pros of this is it's the highest upside, it's scalable, it can generate daily recurring revenue if it's sticky. The cons is it's the hardest to build right, it's more expensive and complex. There's higher customer expectations, of course, and you can waste a ton of time if you don't validate demand. Next, after that is live events, webinars, challenges. The pros is it's the highest conversions, it's the fastest way to get cash plus proof, it's the perfect bridge into bigger offers, but the con is gonna be the time commitment, delivery risk, hard to scale unless you record and systematize it. The next one is gonna be online courses and communities. So the pros is you build it once, it sells forever, it's scalable, the community adds recurring revenue and retention. The cons is it's hard to sell cold, it takes longer to produce, it needs marketing and proof to really work. Finally, you got coaching and consulting. The pros is it's the fastest path to real money, there's no startup costs, it's the easiest to validate, it's the best way to generate case studies. The cons is it's time bound, it's hard to scale up unless you turn it into a group, a cohort, a course, or a system. So now here's how I'd rate these from easiest to hardest to start. The first one is coaching and consulting. I think it's the fastest cash and the lowest barrier. That's what I would usually recommend. Next after that would be low ticket PDFs. It's easy to create, but it's harder to sell from zero, but it is simple. Next is live events and webinars, challenges. You need some confidence, right? And promotion, but it's a very fast payoff. Then you have online courses and communities. It takes more build time and there's also marketing needed, but overall it's decent. And then finally, the hardest one is software and AI products, but it has the highest upside. So if I was starting from zero today, I keep it simple. I start with coaching and consulting to get cash and proof. Then I'd stack a live event or PDF to generate leads. Then I build a course and community. And if I want the biggest long-term upside, which is what I'm doing now, I'd eventually get into software that works for your current customer base. So comment below what you're selling and where you're at right now, and I'll tell you which one of these I'd start with first. And if you want me to go deeper on any one of these business models, just hit subscribe. I'm dropping more full training videos like this all the time. I'll see you guys in the next one.
The old internet is dying, and if your business can't adapt, it's gonna die with it. If I was still doing the same things that worked 8 years ago when I first started, I would have been out of business a long time ago. Now, I've managed to stay in business for almost a decade. I've done over $141 million in sales and helped over 50,000 plus entrepreneurs grow their businesses too. And none of that happened because I found some secret hack one time that worked forever. I've been able to maintain this level of success because I learned how to adapt. And I'm telling you this because I've lived on both sides. I've been the guy with big dreams, no money, living at my parents' house, trying to make an online business work. And I've been a multi-million-dollar CEO with hundreds of employees adapting to keep my company afloat. Back then, you could just post mediocre content and still get attention. You could run simple ads, get cheap leads. You could copy a funnel and would easily start printing cash. That version of the internet is gone. Today, attention is more expensive, trust is lower, and competition is higher than ever before. And in 2026, it's changing faster than ever. Platforms shift overnight, ad costs are spiking, algorithms change, and what used to work for years could stop overnight. So if your business is built on one platform, one traffic source, one offer, one tactic. You're not growing, you're just surviving. And the second the internet shifts, you get wiped out. But if you understand what's actually happening and you adjust your strategy, you can grow faster right now than ever before because most people refuse to adapt. So in this video, I'm gonna break down what parts of the internet are collapsing, why most businesses are getting crushed right now, and the exact model I'd use in 2026 to build a business that actually survives and scales long term. When I first started running Facebook ads back in 2017, it was so simple. I would just put up a shirtless picture with my offer and a ton of leads would pour in, be honest. My first offer that blew up was learn how to eat whatever you want without sabotaging results. The reason I sold that offer is everyone wanted to eat whatever they wanted, but they also wanted to look great, right? And so the only way I knew how to say that ethically is I'll teach you to eat whatever you want without sabotaging results, which put the framework in there that they couldn't just do unlimited amounts of food, but they could have the food they wanted. And because I was in great shape and I had a fitness background, I had been a Division I football player, I was able to just use my physique with that tagline and absolutely crush the internet. And it worked really, really well. I actually was able to scale my business from zero to over $150,000 a month with that promise. And then once they got in the program, I would work on teaching them that process, nutrition, training, all those types of things. So they'd get what I promised on, but then I would teach them the actual ropes to doing it. Another reason it worked is number one, attention was cheap. You could run ads with mediocre creatives and still get clicks. You didn't need to be the best. You just needed to basically exist. Number two, trust was easier. People just believed more. The screenshots, ad pictures. I made $10,000 yesterday. The rented Lambos, the fake gurus. The internet was just way less skeptical in 2016. Trust me, I saw the comments than it is now in 2026. People have been burned by fake gurus or they've tried programs and not committed and now they think everything's fake. So they're cautious, they're tired, and they're way harder to impress even if it is true. Number three is basic information sold. A course could literally be, here's how to do the thing. And people would buy because they had no access. But now information is literally everywhere. And with AI, it's instant. Number four is platforms gave free reach. You could build a whole business off one platform. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook groups. Now platforms are pay to play. They're crowded and unstable. So if your business depends on one channel, you don't really have a stable business anymore. Here's what's happening right now and why it feels like everything is harder. Number one, the supply of creators exploded. Everyone has a course, everyone has coaching, everyone has an agency, everyone has a community. So attention is not only expensive, it's just hard to come by. Number two is people are so numb to marketing. They've seen every hook. They've seen, I was broke. Here's my secret. Here's the 3 steps. Quit your 9 to 5, 10K a month. So if you sound like everyone else, you obviously are going to get ignored. Number three is AI is killing average content. If your value is basic tips or generic advice, repackaged information, AI can do that literally instantly. So average content is dead. Average businesses are dead. Number four is algorithms are squeezing you. Platforms want you to pay. Organic reach gets throttled. Ads get more competitive. CPMs go up. And if you don't have strong creative plus a strong offer, you get destroyed. Number five is trust is the new currency. People don't buy the best product. They buy the product they trust will work. And trust takes proof, consistency, clarity, real results, a real brand. The old internet was attention first. The new internet is trust first. So now here are 3 keys to help you survive and win in this new game in 2026. The first one is you have to become a specialist, not a generalist. If your content is kind of everywhere, a little motivation, a little tips, a little lifestyle, people cannot place you. They can't place you, they won't pay you. You need to be known for one specific outcome for one specific type of person because the specialist is who people trust and the generalist is who people scroll past. Key number 2 is you have to post more content, period. Most people aren't losing because they're not talented. They're losing because they're invisible. And in 2026, the algorithm isn't rewarding perfect. It's rewarding volume plus consistency. If you post once or twice a week, you're basically volunteering to lose. Because if you're giving yourself no data, no reps, no momentum, and you're letting everyone who's posting daily take all the attention, all the customers, more content equals more chances to get seen, more chances to get shared, more chances to get leads. Key number 3 is you need to sell a system, not information. Information is everywhere now. Tips are free. AI can generate advice in 2 seconds. So if what you sell is basically just information, you're going to get crushed. What people actually pay for is a clear system, step by step, exactly what to do in what order with deliverables, accountability, and an outcome. Because people don't want more knowledge. They want a result. So if you've been feeling like, why does everything feel harder? It's not you. It's the way the internet is changing. But if you can't adapt, your business could literally die overnight, or it could die slowly. So here's your move starting today. Pick one niche and go deeper. One person, one problem, one clear outcome. Post more content than you think you need to, daily if possible, because reps create results and visibility creates sales. Stop selling info, start selling a system, a step-by-step process that gets a real outcome people actually want. If you can do that, you don't just survive the new internet, you become one of the people it actually rewards. And if you want, comment what business you're building point of what you're selling, and I'll tell you the #1 change I make right now so you don't get left behind. Digital products are dead in 2026 because right now, everybody's trying to sell the same lazy stuff. A generic course, a $5 PDF, a Notion template, a prompt packed, a faceless how to make money guide. And they're confused why they're getting 0 sales, refund requests, angry comments in a business that feels like it's going absolutely nowhere. So here's the truth. Digital products aren't dead because people stop buying. They're dead because people can smell low value instantly now. And in 2026, attention is more expensive, trust is lower, and competition is way smarter. Now, my name is Terrence Chister. Over the last 8 years, my companies have produced over $141 million in sales. I've had to adapt through every version of the internet. Algorithm changes, ad costs, market saturation, all of it. And the reason I can say this confidently is because I still sell digital products today. And in 2026, we're doing about $53,000 per day from digital products and online offers, but only because we sell them the right way. So in this video, I'm gonna show you which digital products are basically cooked and not even worth trying, why most people are wasting money trying to sell them, and what actually works in 2026 if you want consistent sales. And by the end, you'll know exactly what to build, how to position it, and how to sell it without feeling like you're begging. Certain digital products don't fail because they're digital. They fail because they're replaceable. In 2025, you could throw together a course, slap step by step on the landing page, run some ads, and get traction. In 2026, people have seen it all. Here's what changed. #1 is information is free and instant. If your product is basically, here's what to do, they can get 80% of it for free in 10 minutes. So if your value is information, you're competing with free content, creators who post everything, and tools that can summarize and explain anything on demand. #2 is the market is flooded with copy-paste offers. Most digital products feel like, I watched 3 videos and made a course. I copied someone's template and changed colors. I turned common sense into a PDF. People don't mind paying. They mind paying for repackaged garbage. #3, people don't want content, they want a result. Nobody wakes up wanting a 47 module course. They want more money, they want a better body, they want more clients, they want a skill, they want confidence, they want freedom. So when your product is content and not result, it dies. #4, your product is not the problem, your positioning is. Most people are selling a digital product like it's a thing. But in 2026, you don't sell a thing, you sell a transformation. And here's the line that matters. If your digital product doesn't create a clear outcome fast, or doesn't feel different from everything else, it's not gonna sell. Now let's talk about the stuff people keep trying to sell that's not working for most people. #1 is generic make money courses with no proof. If you don't have proof you've done it and can do it again, it's over. People are tired of gurus standing outside of a private jet or a Lambo claiming they will make you $10,000 a month. They want proof that your system works, little to no risk, and a lot of clarity. #2 is low ticket PDFs as the whole business model. A $5 PDF is not a business. It can be a lead magnet or a tripwire. It can be a volume play if you already have insane traffic. But if you're relying on $5 to $20 products to change your life with no audience, you're setting yourself up to stay broke. #3 is big courses with no accountability. Nobody finishes them, and if people don't finish, they don't get results. If they don't get results, they don't recommend you. If they don't recommend you, your business dies. So if you were just selling a course with no coaching or accountability behind it, 2026 will probably be a rough year for business. So to recap, the products that are basically dead are the ones that are generic, information only, low trust, low proof, no support, and no speed to result. So what's the fix? Here's the truth. Digital products aren't dead, weak offers are dead. And what works in 2026 is digital products that are built like this. #1, productize outcome, not content. So stop selling the course. Sell, get your first 3 clients in 14 days without XYZ thing. Or drop 10 pounds in 30 days with XYZ method. Or fix your ads in 1 weekend without doing XYZ thing. Or build your offer in 7 days and make a sale or get a full refund. Specific, measurable, fast, and low risk. #2 is implementation baked in. You need one of these. Done with you calls, coaching support, checklist plus accountability, community and weekly feedback, reviews, audits, submissions. Not because you want more work, because people pay for results, not lessons. #3 would be proof loops. Your product must create proof for the buyer quickly because proof is what sells your next buyer. So build it so that in week 1 or 2, they get a win, they can post. First lead, first sell, first result, first milestone. #4, high ticket core, low ticket entry. Here's what I do in 2026. Low ticket offer equals get attention, builds trust and filters serious people. High ticket offer equals funds your life, buys you time, scales the business. Most beginners do the opposite. They try to get rich off cheap stuff and then they wonder why it's impossible. #5 is you want to niche down and go deeper, not wider and generic. In 2015, you could be broad. 2026, the winners are specialists. Don't sell fitness for busy dads who travel. Don't sell business, sell offer creation for contractors. Lead gen for gyms, sales for coaches. Specific equals believable. believable. Believable equals buyers. Number 6, content that earns attention daily. In 2026, distribution is the business. The product can be amazing. If nobody sees you, you lose. The new meta is short form content for reach, long form for authority, community for retention, and a clear offer for conversion. Digital products are dead in 2026. Unless your digital product is tied to a real outcome with real implementation and real proof, that's it. Information only will not work in 2026. Transformation with support is unstoppable. So if you've been trying to sell a digital product and it feels like nothing is working, it's not because digital products don't work. It's because your product is positioned like content. And in 2026, content isn't valuable. Results are valuable. So here's what I want you to do. Take your current digital product idea and ask yourself, what is the exact outcome? How fast can they get a win? What support makes it actually happen? And what proof will it create? If you can answer that, your product might not be dead. It could be about to print money. If you want, comment below on what digital product you're trying to sell, and I'll tell you exactly how I tweak it for 2026 so it actually converts. And if you need help starting your business, I made an entire course on how to start. You can click here to watch it for free. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I built a $10 million business by the age of 27. I'm gonna show you exactly how I did it. 8 years ago, I lived at my parents' house and made only $2,000 in my business in total over about 3 years. Today, I've done over $141 million in sales, and I've helped over 50,000 plus clients generate well over $1 billion and counting. And the truth is, if I had to do it all over again, I could, because it all just came down to understanding a few key principles. In this video, I'll show you exactly what those key principles are and the 30-day plan that I'd use if I had to start over and rebuild it all even faster. Now, principle number 1 is what allowed me to go from making $2,000 in 3 years to making over $10,000 in a single week. So all throughout high school and college, I played American football, for any of you guys who don't live in the USA. And I had the dream of playing in the National Football League or the NFL. Once I realized that wasn't going to work out, I dropped out of college because I also realized I didn't want to be a petroleum engineer, which I was studying at the time. Now, I did have great grades, for all you guys who are throwing in shade. I had a 3.9 GPA and had just been accepted to transfer to Texas A&M University, which at the time was the #2 engineering school in the country. I had about a year and a half left to finish my degree, and usually the first year out of college as an engineer, you're gonna be making well over $100,000 a year. But I knew that wasn't gonna make me happy, so I dropped out. And then I tried starting my business, and from 22 to 25, I failed miserably, to be honest with you. So bad, in fact, that it makes me laugh because I only made about $2,000 total in that time span. I was working part-time as a server at Olive Garden while also trying to run my online fitness business simultaneously. Shout out to Olive Garden and their breadsticks. For years, I was making essentially no money selling this $47 fitness program, and I was really stuck in my business. That's what brought me to my first principle. I knew that I needed a mentor, because at that point, it wasn't that I wasn't working hard. I was working super hard. I was posting content, I was training clients, I was answering DMs, I was trying different things. I was watching every YouTube video known to man, doing everything I could think of to do, but I didn't really have a real plan. And the truth is, you can work your ass off and still be running in circles if you're learning from people who've never actually built what you want. So I made a decision. I'm gonna find someone who already has the result I want, and I'm gonna do exactly what they did. So I'm gonna copy the framework until I understand it well enough to make it my own. So when a mentor reached out to me and said the price to work with him was $5,000, I knew I needed to take the risk and make the investment in myself. And that's when everything finally started changing. They looked at my business in like 10 minutes and pointed out the real problem. It wasn't my work ethic, it wasn't my content, it was that my offer was weak. I was selling a cheap program to strangers online with no real reason for them to buy right now, and no real reason to believe it will work. So they gave me a new way to think about it. Stop trying to sell a workout plan, start selling a result. With a clear path, remove the risk, and charge way more for it. Like I was charging 47 bucks and they said charge 1,500. So once I rebuilt my offer using that framework and I started selling my fitness packages for $1,500 for a 4-month plan, that's when I went from struggling for years to doing over $10,000 in a single week. So principle number 1 is simple. Borrow the blueprint. Learn from the people who have done what you're trying to do, because until you have the right knowledge, you'll keep putting time and effort in the wrong places. Because if it took me 3 years to make $2,000 on my own, but 1 week to make $10,000 after getting the right guidance, that tells you everything you need to know about how expensive figuring it out yourself really is. If you're stuck, finding a mentor is step 1, but it only works if you're willing to do exactly what they tell you. Which brings me to principle number 2. This is what allowed me to scale to over $1 million a month within my first 18 months. And it's simple because most people avoid it because it forces you to stop playing small business owner and start thinking like an operator. You have to reinvest your money into marketing and people to buy growth. Because once I fixed my offer and it started working, I had 2 choices. Keep doing everything myself and stay capped by my time. Use the cash the business was generating to buy ads for marketing and buy a team for fulfillment. And that's the moment you stop hustling and you actually can start scaling. Now, scaling really isn't about doing more. It's not posting more, it's not working longer hours. Scaling is turning dollars into customers and turning customers into more dollars without you being that bottleneck. So here's a rule you can follow. Every dollar the business makes has a job. Some of it goes to ads, bringing leads consistently. Some of it goes to people, so the service or product gets delivered at a high level. And my job becomes building systems, so the quality stays high as volume increases. But here's the trap a lot of skilled people fall into. They finally get something working after a long time, and then they protect the money like it's the goal. But the money isn't the goal at the beginning, it's fuel. And if you don't use that fuel to increase your capacity and your lead flow, you're gonna stay stuck at whatever level your personal time can handle. So principle number 2 is use your profits to buy back your time and to buy more attention. That's how you're gonna scale. You don't need to be the best in the world. That's a common myth. You just need an offer that converts and a way to get in front of people, usually with ads, and a team that can fulfill it without you doing everything. And once I actually understood that, it became a game of levers. If I want more sales, I increase volume with ads. If I want to handle more clients, I increase fulfillment capacity with the team. If I want it to all stay smooth, I build systems so it runs the same every single time. So now the question becomes, okay, how big can this get and how long can it last? Which brings me to principle number 3. This is what's allowed me to keep growing even a decade in. Because the truth is, once you start making real money, the biggest threat isn't your competition. It's you, it's your ego, it's chasing status. It's turning your business into an ATM for look at me purchases like a Lamborghini that I bought in the past, instead of using it like a machine that actually compounds and gives you freedom in life. And I learned this the hard way. When I was making around $1 to $2 million per month, I bought a Lamborghini for $500,000. And don't get me wrong, I could afford it. I had more than enough money. But here's what nobody tells you. Chasing status and approval of other people gets old fast. At first, it feels insane. People look, you feel like you made it. Then a few weeks go by and it's just a car with a whole bunch of maintenance and bills. Every little inconvenience starts to stack up. And it hit me. I made all this money to get freedom to do whatever I want. And then I trade my freedom for a bunch of stuff that doesn't really matter. And that's when I realized something that changed everything. Status purchases don't make you rich. They keep you from staying rich. So I flipped the whole mindset. Instead of spending money to impress people who don't care, I started spending money to buy freedom and growth. So here's what I do now. I keep emergency funds, right? So I'm never stressed or forced into bad decisions. I put money into assets that don't depreciate like a car, and I reinvest aggressively into the only thing that can compound forever. My team, my systems, and my business. I spend money on traveling and experiencing new places and things because the real flex isn't a car. The real flex is waking up with zero financial stress, knowing you can survive any downturn and being able to scale without burning out. So principle number 3 is don't chase status, chase freedom, reinvest, build assets, build a team, build real infrastructure. Because the goal isn't to have a big month. The goal is to build something that keeps growing year after year, even when you don't feel motivated, even when the market changes, even when life gets chaotic, because it will. And once you understand that, you stop thinking like a consumer and you start thinking like a real CEO. So now here's the exact 30-day plan I would use if I was restarting from zero. From day 1 to 7, I would choose a niche to create an offer in. But I wouldn't just choose any niche. I would specifically focus on industries related to health, wealth, or relationships. Those are the 3 major pain points that human beings struggle with consistently. Everyone wants better health, whether that means losing weight, getting stronger, sleeping better. People always need solutions related to health. Everybody always wants more wealth, obviously, and financial security. That's why you're watching this video right now. And lastly, everyone wants better relationships. These are the only 3 niches that you should create an offer under. Everything someone does ties back to one of those 3 things. That's a fact. But obviously your offer will need to be unique and specific in order to stand out and attract the right customers. So from day 1 to 7, find your niche. And then from days 8 to 14, find a specific problem within that niche that you can solve and create an offer that people will pay premium prices for. For example, instead of just being like, lots of people are overweight, I help people lose weight, which is boring. Maybe you notice that all the dads on your son's hockey team have beer bellies. So that can become your avatar, hockey dads. Now when creating an offer, it needs to have 4 things. And I'm stealing this formula from Alex Hormozi's book, $100 Million Offers, called the offer value equation. Now I was already creating offers like this, but I never heard it explained so simply. So shout out to Alex for that. Basically every good offer needs to have these things to be slammed on: dream outcome, perceived likelihood of achievement, time delay, and then effort and sacrifice. So for example, your offer could become, I help hockey dads drop the beer belly before the end of the season while catching every game. It says something broad and unappealing like, I'll help anybody lose 50 pounds in a week by not eating or sleeping. Once you know who you're targeting, you can understand their pain points, their goals, and how to help them in a way that feels personalized to them. That's how you get people to pay high prices for your services, even if you're just starting out. Now, obviously you need to have a good product and be able to deliver your clients amazing results as well, but you aren't going to have any clients if you don't perfect your offer first. You got to get people to buy before they can see how good your product is. So use the offer value formula and create your offer specific for your niche that people would feel stupid saying no to. Then from days 15 to 30, it's going to be all about finding leads and getting your first high ticket sale. So you need to understand where you're avatar is and what to say when you find them. So for this hockey dad offer, I would probably start by looking on Instagram and Facebook. I look under hashtags like hockey dad, beer league, local minor hockey teammate, etc. Now, once you find your ideal avatar, you're gonna send them a simple non-intrusive message. So it might sound something like this. Wow, it looks like number 19 is killing it this year. Is that your son? I used to play for so-and-so team. It was a blast. Okay, something personalized. You're gonna send 100 of those a day. Now, it seems like a lot, but it's really only about 20 messages an hour for 5 hours of work. So yeah, it's not efficient, but you can do it or stay broke or work 5 hours in some random job working for someone else. It's your choice. You're gonna look for about 15% response rate if it's cold, meaning it's a person who doesn't follow you. If it's warm, you can look for about 30%. So you can send 100 messages, 15 to 30 people respond. Now, once they respond, you're gonna gently lead them into a DM script. So after they say, oh yeah, the team is doing so good, blah, blah, blah. So then you're like, yeah, that's crazy. Wish I could catch more games, but I'm always working. What do you do for work? The work question always works. Now we're in the script, right? We're in the process. So they're gonna say, oh, I do XYZ. You don't care what they say. Then you say, nice. Does that keep you busy? Everybody says that it keeps them busy. Trust me, no one says they're lazy. So they're always gonna say, yes, that keeps me busy, which then opens the door for you to say, does that make it hard to keep up with your XYZ goals? In this case, we're gonna say fitness goals. They're gonna be like, yeah, it actually does. So then you can ask, okay, like, what are you struggling with? What have you tried before? Have you ever had a coach? Once they go through that, you're now ready for the pitch. So you say, okay, so hey, I actually do this fitness stuff all day long. I don't know if you care or not, but like, I'd be happy to hop on a call with you if you want some help. Now the goal is to get them on a short 5 to 10 minute call where we can book in another call, which is gonna be the sales call, which is gonna be where we close the deal. From the 30% that responded, you can look to book maybe 3 to 5 calls and close 1 to 3. So you wanna get about 10% of those people to book a call. So from days 15 to 30, I would focus on sending out 100 cold messages to my ideal avatar type every single day. Even if you booked 15 calls and closed 5 for $1,500 each, you would almost be at $10,000. And that's exactly how I made my first $10,000 the first week I switched to this strategy. Now, if you need help with the specific DM and phone scripts that will close high ticket clients consistently, drop a comment under this video and I'll point you in the right direction, because I have a ton of videos on the channel and free resources that go into exactly what to say at each stage. So those are the 3 principles that changed everything for me. Get a mentor, reinvest in yourself, and stop chasing status so you can keep compounding. If you master those, you won't just make money once, you'll build something that grows year after year. If you found this video valuable, make sure to like and subscribe, because I'm dropping everything you need to know to grow and scale your business right here on this channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.